Chapter 2942. Elders was face darkened. No. Miss Yi, why don't you go to the Saintess' yard to hide? I don't believe that those people from the Palace of Darkness would dare to barge into our Miao tribe. Secluded Darkness Palace even dared to provoke the Imperial Palace. Why would they be afraid of a Miao tribe? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Their target is me. Could it be just because you noticed that the guards of the Palace of Darkness are actually all corpses? The secret of being able to infect evil energy? The elder on the right clenched his fists angrily because of the puppets from the Palace of Darkness and the infected Miao guards. The two judging elders had been extremely dissatisfied with the Palace of Darkness for a long time. Yi Qing Luo smiled but didn't reply. The reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was against her, even she herself didn't know. Perhaps the dark forces had an irreconcilable grudge against her. Or it could be that the Nether Palace wanted to deal with DMO Xian, and she was DMO, Xian's woman. Or perhaps there were many possibilities. However, Abyss Palace's true goal was to wait until he would only know when the person behind the scenes of the Gloomy Palace appeared. Why is it suddenly so noisy? What happened? Yan Xiao Yi and the rest walked out of their rooms. Yi Qing Luo looked at those people who were walking over. Their hair was not messy. His clothes were neat and tidy without any creases. However, these clothes were the same clothes which Yi Qing Luo wore not long ago when she came to the courtyard to discuss with them about leaving the Miao tribe. That was to say, she sent her brothers back to their rooms to rest. None of them could rest in peace. They were all worried about her. Yi Qing Luo's heart warmed. Qing Luo, why are there so many torches outside? What kind of Miao ritual is this? Yan Xiao, he looked at the sky that was dyed red, and then looked outside the perimeter wall, at the red glow that enveloped everything. Kitty seems to have smelled something weird. It stinks. Kitty Li wrinkled her nose and covered it with her hand. Zhou Emo tightened his arms around her shoulders and frowned as he looked at the sky through the high walls. The expression on his face was no longer as frivolous as before. Instead, there was a hint of solemnity. What's going on? Such a big thing happened in the Miao tribe, and I didn't receive any news? As Taozi spoke, she took out the important information that Bapti had given her from her bosom and kept rummaging through it. But no matter how he searched, he could not find a single piece of information related to the Miao tribe. Gui Wu, who was walking at the back, had a solemn and cold expression on his face as he exchanged glances with Zhou Mo. Although Gui Wu did not say anything, his expression had already revealed the seriousness of the matter. Both he and Zhou Mo had grim expressions on their faces. After some time, Gui Wu slowly shifted his line of sight onto Yi Qing Luo as he opened his mouth coldly. A very strong aura! Yeah, Yi Qing Luo naturally sensed the majestic, overbearing aura outside the Miao tribe. Whereas the formidable opponent, I'm afraid it's going to be difficult to deal with. Miss Yi, I think you should follow me to the back of the mountain. Even if there are people guarding the back mountain, we can still fight our way out with our strength. Elder Zhua immediately voiced out his opinion after hearing their words. To have such a strong presence, she obviously came prepared, and will definitely not give me a chance to leave. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes, as the cold glint reflected out was a little biting cold. Chapter 2943. The elders on the left and right looked at each other, and their faces turned pale. Missy, you mean there's a spy from the Palace of Darkness in the Miao tribe? Yi Qing Luo smiled without saying a word. But this smile also tacitly agreed with their guesses. Indeed, if it wasn't for an insider, why would the people of the dark, secluded palace choose this time to lead the dark, secluded palace to surround the Miao tribe? The new saintess was not present. The former saintess wasn't here either. The two pillars of support were gone. The people of Gloomy Palace easily incited the people of the Miao tribe. At that time, she would not only have to deal with the people from the Palace of Darkness, He still had to split himself to guard against the Meow tribesmen. The right elder clenched his fists and was filled with hatred. My Meow tribe has been in the Meow tribe's territory for generations. We rarely appear in other parts of the continent and make enemies with others. I originally thought that this would ensure the simplicity of our Meow tribe's people. I didn't expect. There is no limit to human greed. Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth calmly. There are two sides to everything. You thought that by restricting the Meow clansmen from leaving the Meow clan, you would be able to maintain their original intentions, but because the people they interacted with were all Meow clansmen, they don't know the loathing of the outside world. So it's easier for them to listen to other people's slanderous words, or perhaps the temptation given. Oui. When the left and right judging elders heard Yi Qing Luo's words, they seemed to have suffered a blow as they staggered a few steps backwards. We must find the mole behind all of this. Let him know the consequences of betraying the Meow tribe. The right elder's voice was filled with deep sorrow and regret. In order to preserve the simplicity of the people, they specially made this suggestion. Unexpectedly, it became an opportunity for the palace of gloomy darkness to make use of. The traitor who betrayed the Meow tribe and sent information to the palace of darkness. He would not let them off easily. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes were frivolous as her face still had that lazy expression. Leave this courtyard first, in case it implicates the both of you. Yi Qing Luo didn't really like these two judging elders, but he didn't hate it either, at least compared to those sanctimonious Meow elders. At least they were more sincere towards the Meow tribe. The right judge elder's face turned cold. You are the Meow tribe's guest and also the saint's friend. The palace of secluded darkness is looking for the Meow tribe in such a blatant manner. If I am afraid that I will be implicated and ignore you, then I am not fit to be the judge elder. Yes, what justice and fairness are we talking about? Elders would clench his fists and said with righteous indignation, It's you who allowed the Meow tribe to find a saintess who can truly be the saintess. You are the benefactor of the Meow tribe. Their gazes were firm and serious. Yi Qing Luo looked at them for some time and laughed. I know your sincerity. Right, Judge Elder, if you really want to. Yi Qing Luo, come out for this elder. Suddenly, a burst of angry curses came from outside the courtyard. Then, the gate of the courtyard was split open by a palm strike. Instantly, wood splinters flew everywhere. A skinny figure dashed into the room. His mouth was still cursing and swearing. Yi Qing Luo, you jinx! Hurry up and roll out for this elder. Did he think that by hiding here he could escape from the trouble he had caused? Come out now. Old Five. When the elder on the right saw who it was, he yelled, What are you yelling about? Shut up. The person who came, wasn't it that hot-tempered fifth elder Meow? Chapter 2944. Immediately, fifth elder Meow stared furiously at Yi Qing Luo. Elder Right, surely you're not thinking of shielding this jinx, right? What jinx? Don't talk nonsense. The right elder's face darkened. Fifth elder, Meow, pointed at the flames outside the door. He gritted his teeth and cursed. You call this nonsense? The palace of gloomy darkness is already at our doorstep. The right judge furrowed his white eyebrows. When fifth elder Meow saw that he did not speak, he felt that he was in the right. On top of that, fifth elder Meow had already exposed himself in the underground tunnel. He was colluding with Meow Rongrong and had the intention of helping Meow Rongrong get the position. Meow Yi had already become a holy maiden. The things that he had done would definitely be told to Meow Yi by Yi Qing Luo in revenge. At that time, it would be difficult for him to keep his position as an elder. Fifth elder Meow wouldn't think that losing his position as an elder was a mistake caused by his improper thoughts. Instead, he blamed everything on Yi Qing Luo. He originally had a belly full of anger and unhappiness towards Yi Qing Luo. At this moment, he felt even more. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, his and Miao Rongrong's plan wouldn't have failed. After Miao Rongrong became an elder, then he would be the hero. He was Miao Rongrong's confidant, but now everything was disrupted. He would even suffer from Miao Yi and Yi Qing Luo's revenge. The more he thought about it, the deeper the hatred in the fifth elder's heart grew. The deeper it was, the more he wanted to destroy Yi Qing Luo. If Yi Qing Luo knew about the things that fifth elder Miao's mind was filled with, they would definitely look at him with disdain. She really did not have the time to complain to Miao Yi. She was not in the mood to go against Elder Miao Wu. For a short-sighted and hot-tempered person like Elder Miao Wu, it was only a matter of time before he suffered a loss. There was no need for her to do it herself. He could only say that Elder Miao Wu thought too highly of him. No one knew that in Yi Qing Luo's eyes, fifth Elder Miao was not even comparable to an ant. He was not worthy of her attention at all. Fifth Elder Miao was unaware of this as he shouted in rage. Ever since this woman came to the Miao tribe, there have been various incidents happening in the Miao tribe. Our Miao tribe has never had a peaceful day. How is she not a jinx? Misfortune followed him wherever he went. If she hadn't become enemies with the emissary of the Palace of Darkness during the Saintess selection ceremony, if she had not forced the second palace master of the Palace of Darkness to kill those useless people, the guards of the Miao tribe would not have been infected. If she didn't insist on Miao Yi becoming the Saintess and offend the Palace of Darkness, the people from the Palace of Darkness wouldn't have surrounded the Miao tribe at this time. Fifth Elder Miao spat out a series of incriminating evidence. Saying that, he panted heavily as the green veins on his forehead popped out, as he pointed at Yi Qing Luo in a towering rage. This woman is a demoness! He is the jinx of the Miao tribe. Elder Zhua, who had been silent all this while, said sternly, "Old Five, I thought you were just a little hot-tempered. I didn't expect you to be so narrow-minded. In your eyes, do you only see these superficial things? You keep saying that the Palace of Darkness had been targeting the Miao tribe time and time again because of Missy. Then have you ever thought that on such an important day for our Miao tribe, Palace of Darkness totally disregarded our Miao tribe's reputation and kept creating trouble? What do they treat our Miao tribe as?" Chapter 2945. Right Judge Elder sneered as he spoke, as though he was ridiculing Fifth Elder Miao's ignorance. The disdainful gaze swept past Fifth Elder Miao as he continued. If it wasn't for Missy, those guards from Secluded Palace would not only be infected by those few Miao guards. If it wasn't for Missy, those infected guards would all turn into puppets. By then, have you thought about what kind of state our Miao tribe would be in? Left Judge Elder also continued, "Old Five, don't think that we don't know what happened in the underground tunnel and push all the blame onto Missy. If it wasn't for Miao Rongrong's evil intentions collaborating with Secluded Palace, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. If Secluded Palace wants to make a fuss, they need to see if we old bones allow it or not." Right and left Judge Elders spoke one after another as their imposing manner surged. Every word and sentence forced Fifth Elder Miao to take a few steps back. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red as his fingers trembled as he pointed at this and that with an annoyed look. Yi Qing Luo, who was blocked behind by the left and right elders, listened to the two elders arguing for her, looking at the two of them standing in front of her, that tall and straight-back view. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed past a faint sense of warmth. Most of the time, respect and help were mutual. Right and left judge elders treated her well. She would naturally remember this kindness. The two of them at this moment still stood in front of her without any hesitation, speaking up for her. That was enough for Yi Qing Luo to remember them. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she was about to push the two of them aside to reply. But this smile fell into Fifth Elder Miao's eyes. Fifth Elder Miao only felt that Yi Qing Luo was ridiculing him, showing off that she had the help of the two elders. Immediately, Elder Meow felt as if there was a ball of anger in his head. It surged up and devoured all his rationality. The two of you have made up your mind to speak up for this jinx, haven't you? Can I take it that you're in cahoots? Yi Qing Luo, you want to invade Meow tribe, trying to make use of Meow Yi's trust towards you, to ally with old left and right, to let you invade Meow tribe legitimately, right? He was howling as his eyes turned red, and without any explanation, he went up to pull Yi Qing Luo. You leave with this elder. As long as we hand over a jinx like you, my Meow tribe will have peace. Yi Qing Luo would never let Fifth Elder Meow bump into her. Fifth Elder Meow's hand hadn't even come close. Yi Qing Luo had already moved her feet, avoiding Fifth Elder Meow's outstretched hand. Coincidentally, the left and right judges' elders quickly grabbed onto Fifth Elder Meow. Fifth Elder Meow was so infuriated that he kept on struggling as he scolded. Yi Qing Luo, you slut! If you really treat Meow Yi as your friend, then for Meow Yi's sake, don't implicate my Meow tribe. You should just surrender yourself to us. Ha! Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched slightly as she gave a scornful smile. A pair of long and narrow eyes curved into a faint, seductive arc. Fifth Elder Meow, if I say you're stupid, you really are. The girl's voice was filled with disdain and ridicule. Fifth Elder Meow's face flushed red from the provocation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, wanting to pounce forward and forcefully attack. However, he was quickly held down by the elders on the left and right. Chapter 2946. Yi Qing Luo's words left her mouth. Fifth Elder Meow, who was making a racket, instantly shut his mouth. The other two judging elders also looked towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo met their gazes as she smiled calmly. The answer is no. From the moment Secluded Palace set their eyes on Meow tribe, it is impossible for Meow tribe to remain unscathed. When Yi Qing Luo's last sentence left her mouth, the few elders' faces turned ghastly pale at this instant, especially Fifth Elder Meow. His face was pale and ugly as it kept on twisting. His ruthless eyes shone with a dim luster as he racked his brains to think of how to rebuke Yi Qing Luo's words. Yi Qing Luo didn't even take a look at Fifth Elder Meow as she walked straight towards the courtyard's entrance. Demoness, you're trying to escape. Fifth Elder Meow seemed to have found a breakthrough as he screamed in a sharp, tearing voice. He struggled as he pushed the left and right judging elders. The both of you are that demoness accomplices. The left and right judging elders restrained Fifth Elder Meow as they watched him struggling endlessly, cursing and swearing. The two of them looked at each other. This Fifth Elder Meow's every word was directed at Yi Qing Luo, and he kept on leading the tempo, trying to make them hand Yi Qing Luo over to Secluded Palace. Could it be? Meow tribe's traitor, Secluded Palace's spy, was Fifth Elder Meow? This thought made the left and right judging elders' faces sunk. The gaze which they shot towards Fifth Elder Meow was filled with judgment. Whereas at this moment, Yi Qing Luo and the rest had already walked out of the courtyard as they rushed towards the direction of Meow tribe's entrance. Meow tribe's surroundings were brightly lit. The burning torches swayed as it drew out a long silhouette. There wasn't a single person around. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sneered as she sized up the surroundings. It looked like all the Meow tribesmen had already rushed to the entrance of Meow tribe. He had only sent Elder Meow Wu alone to the courtyard where she was staying to invite her? This was a good idea. Fifth Elder Meow was a hot-tempered person, whereas for Yi Qing Luo, after hearing that Meow tribe was surrounded, she was agitated by Fifth Elder Meow's nasty words. She made a move on Fifth Elder Meow. Then he ran away with his brothers. This also confirmed that Yi Qing Luo had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to face the truth of the Palace of Seclusion. In this way, the Meow tribesmen would also feel that Secluded Palace was targeting Yi Qing Luo and the Meow tribesmen were innocent victims. secluded Darkness Palace could swallow up the Miao tribe legitimately and also push the blame to Yi Qing Luo, thus alienating the relationship between the Miao tribe and Yi Qing Luo. As for Yi Qing Luo and the Sacred Maiden's intimate relationship, as a result, the people of the Miao tribe would no longer have the respect and faith they once had for the Saintess. Instead, they would be filled with resentment. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have brains. Gue Wu, who was usually silent, also opened his mouth. It was obvious that he had seen through the plans of the Palace of Darkness. Yan Xiaoyi and Kitty Li blinked their eyes, not really understanding the meaning behind Gue Wu's words. However, their men just patted their heads and smiled mysteriously. Looks like tonight is going to be a little tricky. Yi Qing Luo didn't intentionally explain as her lips curled into a smile. Master Gue Wu, you will help right. Gue Wu lifted his eyelids as he squinted at Yi Qing Luo, but didn't say a word. Not rebutting meant that he had tacitly agreed. Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt that she had a backer now. Gue Wu and Zhou Emo had always been a mysterious existence. Yi Qing Luo couldn't tell how their abilities were, but one thing was for sure. Chapter 2947. As long as she had nothing to worry about, she could give it her all. The group hurried to the entrance of the Miao tribe. The entrance of the Miao tribe was now surrounded by Miao tribesmen. Standing right in front of the Miao tribesmen were Great Elder Miao and the rest. On seeing Yi Qing Luo and the rest silhouettes, Great Elder Miao immediately went up to them. "Miss Yi, you all! Why are you all?" His gaze went past Yi Qing Luo and the rest, looking behind them. "Look for Fifth Elder Miao." Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. She didn't have any good impression of this hypocrite, although Grand Elder Miao's face put on a worried expression, trying to show that he didn't wish for Yi Qing Luo and the others to rush over to send themselves to death. "That's right. I didn't ask Old Fifth to inform you to ask you," Great Elder Miao said ambiguously on purpose. Based on what he said, it sounded like he had arranged for Elder Miao Wu to go to the courtyard to inform her so that she could seize the opportunity to escape. It was as if he was thinking of her wholeheartedly. Looking at Grand Elder Miao's hypocritical worried face, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but tugged her lips as she sneered. "Let him forcefully bring me over, to dedicate himself to your Miao tribe till my death?" Great Elder Miao's expression stiffened, and he hurriedly said, "And no. How? What happens to your Elder Miao has nothing to do with me." Yi Qing Luo directly interrupted Grand Elder Miao's words. "Since the Palace of Darknesses, people specifically pointed out my name to look for me. Then, I'll come over to take a look at what tricks the Palace of Darkness is trying to play." His sonorous and forceful words deterred the surrounding noises of people pointing at him. Yi Qing Luo's brows were frivolous as her charming eyes stared straight ahead, raising the torch up high, surrounding the Miao tribe, those people from secluded palace. At a glance, there were at least 1,000 people. They were all disciples wearing the uniform of the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo's gaze finally fell onto the most conspicuous spot among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. It was a huge beast, comparable to a dinosaur. It looked ugly and ferocious, and it was impossible to tell what kind of magical beast it was. They had almost blocked the path to the Miao tribe. On the body of the magical beast, standing in front of them, was a woman in a long white dress with an ethereal aura. The woman was young and beautiful, but there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness between her brows. There was a clear sense of incongruity with his temperament and age. At this moment, the woman was staring at Yi Qing Luo with a venomous look. Beside the woman was a woman dressed in the attire of the Palace of Darkness. Her face was also filled with hatred, and there was an arrogant and proud smile in her eyes. After looking at the faces of the two women, Yi Qing Luo scoffed in disdain. These two people were not strangers. It was Plum who had been humiliated under Yi Qing Luo's hands, and the so-called envoy from secluded palace, Yan Jinfei. These two people had forgotten the pain after the scar had healed. Here to stir up trouble again? Yi Qingluo was staring intently at that huge magical beast, as she was still considering if her Ju's tiny body was able to take on that dinosaur-like magical beast's devastation. Suddenly, a cautious and tentative voice rang in her ears. Missy, Yi Qingluo turned back and met with Fourth Elder Miao's slightly flustered expression. Chapter 2948. Hearing this, First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao immediately shifted their gazes over. Fourth Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with caution. Ever since the Saintess accepted the inheritance yesterday, she has not shown herself. If it was in the past, we wouldn't have said anything if she didn't show herself, but now, after all, she is the holy lady of the Miao tribe and the future tribe leader of the Miao tribe. She must bear this responsibility. After Fourth Elder Miao finished his words, he carefully took a look at Yi Qingluo's expression. Seeing Yi Qingluo's calm expression, he continued, If Missy knows where Sacred Maiden is, you must tell us. At least at this time, with Saintess present, she can appease the hearts of the Miao tribe. My motive for coming to the Miao tribe is very simple, and I believe that previously Miao Rongrong should have mentioned it to you. Yi Qingluo's expression didn't change as she met Fourth Elder Miao's eyes calmly. I need the strongest person in the Miao tribe to do something for me. After Yi received the inheritance of the Gu King, she went to do it for me. She can't come back for now. Yi Qingluo's tone was extremely calm. Fourth Elder Miao's eyes flickered a few times, unable to differentiate the truth in Yi Qingluo's words. When Grand Elder Miao heard Yi Qingluo's words, he sighed. Since that's the case, then there's no other way. After all, you don't know that secluded palaces, people will surround the Miao tribe tonight. Although his words sounded as if he was speaking up for Miao Yi, it was not a big deal. But when he listened carefully, this was obviously drawing hatred for Yi Qingluo. After hearing Great Elder Miao's words, the Miao tribesmen were surrounded by the Palace of Darkness disciples, and their fates were unknown. He would never understand Miao Yi's departure. Instead, he would constantly complain in his heart, no matter what the reason is. When the Miao tribe was in trouble, as the Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe, she had to be there. However, the Holy Maiden had abandoned the Miao tribe for the sake of her so-called friend. Was she still a qualified Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe? In the Holy Maiden's heart, only that so-called friend was the most important. Hence, after this thought was born in the hearts of the Miao clansmen, all their fury would be directed onto Yi Qingluo. Great Elder Miao, your words. Yan Xiaoyi was instantly infuriated. Her face turned black as she pointed at Great Elder Miao and was about to scold him. Before he could finish howling, he was stopped by Yi Qingluo. A mere Miao tribe is not worthy of my attention. Yi Qingluo was extremely arrogant as her brows were mixed with faint ridicule. Let's go take a look at the secluded palace. Yi Qingluo had long seen through Grand Elder Miao's tricks, but she was too lazy to care. To her, the Miao tribesmen were just outsiders. She didn't care how he thought about her, and she didn't want to care either. What she needed to do now was to stand on the side of Miao Yi's friend and protect the Miao tribe from being annihilated. That was enough. Yi Qingluo and the rest didn't even bother to take a look at the Miao tribe's elders as they directly walked towards the direction of that huge magical beast. Coincidentally, after Fourth Elder Miao finished his question, at the instant when Yi Qingluo and the rest left, he slowly raised his head. His vision seemed as though it was directed towards Yi Qingluo and the rest's backs. But if one took a closer look, that vision went past Yi Qingluo and the rest, staring straight at those people from the secluded palace. Finally, his vision seemed to have met with someone. Chapter 2949. Under the gaze of the Miao clansmen and the disciples of the Dark Abyss Palace, Yi Qing Luo and the rest slowly walked over. Mei viciously looked down at Yi Qing Luo from above, as if she was standing on a higher position and had many backers, so there was a kind of unbridled complacency. Yi Qing Luo, you've got guts. Mei's sharp voice was filled with jealousy. Come to think of it, you also know that the Miao tribe suffered such an undeserved disaster because of you, so you obediently came out to die. What else can she do besides throwing her life away? Yan Zhenfei was also full of hatred. Even the veil could not conceal the viciousness on her face. Could it be that she still wants to rely on the Miao tribe to avoid our condemnation? Mei covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly. Because of her, the Miao tribe has suffered such an undeserved calamity and is facing the danger of being devoured by our palace of Yuyu. Why would we help her? Both of their voices were deliberately spread out with their xianqi. Almost everyone at the entrance of the Miao tribe could hear it clearly. Immediately, these two people's words aroused the hatred in the hearts of countless Miao clansmen. Facing the encirclement of more than 1,000 people from the Palace of Abyss. In addition, there was an extremely ferocious-looking magical beast. These Miao tribesmen had personally witnessed the strength of the Palace of Darkness guards yesterday. If they resisted, it was like striking a rock with an egg. They were all extremely worried and frightened. They were afraid that the Palace of Darkness would destroy the Miao tribe and they would not be able to fight back. Now, under such a worrying and fearful situation, the people from secluded Darkness Palace had pointed out that their Miao tribe was totally implicated. It was entirely because of Yi Qing Luo that they were surrounded by secluded Darkness Palace. In his heart, a bellyful of hatred towards Yi Qing Luo surged up. Immediately, the Miao tribesmen, who did not even dare to let out a fart under the suppression of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. At this moment, all of them were shouting for Yi Qing Luo to get out of the Miao tribe. For a moment, the entire entrance of the Miao tribe was in an uproar. Mei and Yan Xiao looked at each other and smiled. She felt that with just a few words, she was able to stir up so many people, causing them to burst out with complaints towards Yi Qing Luo. They felt extremely proud of themselves. Gossip had always been the sharpest weapon. Once a person was corroded by rumors and it became more and more intense, it could completely crush a person into utter disarray. They wanted to make use of the Miao clansmen to make Yi Qing Luo feel the pressure from the rumors. But they seemed to have miscalculated. Facing thousands of people's accusations and curses, Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Even the group of people behind her were calm and did not seem to be able to stir up any waves. The Miao tribesman's reprimand was like a punch hitting cotton, soft and soft. It made them feel suffocated in their chests, and they couldn't get it out no matter what. And the group of them didn't seem to care at all, completely unaffected by the numerous criticisms of the Miao tribesmen. This caused Mei and Yan Zhenfei's expressions to freeze bit by bit. Useless trash! A cold shout came from behind the two of them. Their faces paled, and they immediately bowed and nodded respectfully, Second Palace Master. Behind the two of them, a slim figure slowly walked over. That person was covered by a black veil, revealing only a pair of beautiful fox-like eyes. Chapter 2950. This sentence was filled with a dignified roar. Instantly, it made those noisy Miao tribesmen quieten down. The entire Miao tribe's entrance was within 100 miles radius. Only the rustling sound of the wind blowing past the trees could be heard. The air in the entire space seemed to have condensed into a layer of frost. All the Miao tribesmen felt their bodies shivering slightly from the bottom of their feet to the top of their heads, surging with traces of chilliness. Second Palace Lord stood on that huge magical beast's head. Her posture was extremely high. Her bewitching cold eyes had turned into a sharp blade, ruthlessly slicing Yi Qing Luo. However, everyone's hearts were filled with anxiety and fear, while their nerves were stretched taut. meeting with Second Palace Lord's icy cold gaze. Yi Qingluo's face didn't show any signs of panic, not even a little bit of fear. Yi Qingluo's brows rose as her slender fingers gently brushed past her lower jaw, curling it over her shoulder, a wisp of fine black hair twined around her fingertips. Following that, her pink lips curled up into a sweet smile. That devastatingly beautiful face gave off a suffocating charm, which was enough to charm all living beings. Every action, every smile, and every frown. As compared to the half-concealed Second Palace Lord, she was obviously more dazzling. Second Palace Lord's eyes were suffused with a poisonous chill. She coldly swept past Yi Qingluo's face, which made one want to destroy it, as she gritted her teeth and gave a cold harumph. Yi Qingluo, do you think that just by casually flirting, someone will save you? Or will the people from the Palace of Darkness show mercy? What a pity! Our Palace of Darkness has no lack of women. Jealousy caused Second Palace Lord's fox-like eyes to be tainted with a malicious glint. Even her voice became sharp and unpleasant. This Palace Lord doesn't have the mood to waste time with you here. If you don't surrender, this Palace Lord will give the order to attack and occupy the Miao tribe. Giggle, giggle. A low laughter spilled out from Yi Qingluo's pink lips. The young lady covered her mouth. Her eyebrows curved into a crescent, bewitching like a blooming rose, making one unable to shift their gaze away. I also have to say, Second Palace Lord, it's such a pity. The girl's voice was unique and sweet, like pearls falling on a plate, pleasing to the ear to the extreme. Whatever the Palace of Darkness does to the Miao tribe has nothing to do with me. The people of the Miao tribe have nothing to do with me. I don't care if you want to kill or torture them. Yi Qingluo's words were very light, and her calm voice didn't reveal any excess emotions. Yi Qingluo's sentence had indeed aroused the Miao clansmen's endless fury. Yi Qingluo, do you have to be so shameless? If you hadn't implicated the Miao tribe, how would our Miao tribe have suffered such an undeserved calamity? You still dare to say that it has nothing to do with us? It's all your fault. You are the one who harmed the Miao tribe. Shouldn't you bear this responsibility? How dare you say that you treat the Saintess as a friend? If you really treat the Saintess as a friend, then you should stand up and sacrifice yourself to protect the Miao tribe. You want to escape by yourself and let us pay with our lives for the grudge between you and the Palace of Darkness? Don't you dare! Numerous grievances, as well as exploding anger, almost overturned the Miao tribe. The Miao clansmen's fear towards death made them speak without thinking. Towards all the abuse and questioning, Yi Qingluo totally didn't treat it as anything, as though she turned a deaf ear to it unmoved. Chapter 2951. Motive. Second Palace Mistress chuckled as she mumbled this word. The pair of seductive eyes curved even more. My motive is only you. Her voice wasn't considered soft. It drifted melodiously above the entire Miao tribe entrance. Yi Qingluo, take a good look at this face of mine. Second Palace Mistress leapt upwards, and in a blink of an eye, an afterimage flashed past, and she had already appeared 2 steps away from Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo didn't move at all. What came towards her was Second Palace Mistress's powerful, profound energy. Like a bone-cutting sharp blade, it slashed towards Yi Qingluo's face. Yi Qingluo's eyelashes fluttered slightly, but she didn't intentionally evade. Just as this burst of profound energy was about to land on Yi Qingluo's face, Yi Qingluo's eyelashes suddenly drew a silhouette of flowing light. Like a ripple on water, layer after layer of ripples appeared in midair. Second Palace Mistress's profound energy. It hit on that ripple. Instantly it turned into nothingness. The surrounding, violent aura was like a whirlwind, lingering between the two of them, like the tumbling huge waves in the vast sea, constantly stirring up the most ferocious whirlwind. In this whirlwind, the two of them who stood facing each other had no change in their expressions. Second Palace Mistress's eyes were seductive, but revealed an obvious murderous intent. She sneered as she used her hand to slowly remove the black veil which was covering her face, revealing that face which Yi Qing Luo was extremely familiar with. Second Palace Mistress's red lips curled, as her slender fingers caressed that smooth, fair face bit by bit, as she asked with a low laugh, "Yi Qing Luo, do you still recognize me?" This face, Yi Qing Luo had coincidentally taken a look at it before. At that time, her reaction was that she felt that she had seen wrongly. But now, this face was revealed in front of her without any concealment. This confirmed that she had not seen wrongly right from the start. This Second Palace Mistress's face was Yi Qing Qian's. That face which was exactly the same as Yi Qing Qian, without any difference, especially when he heard the Second Palace Master's question. For a moment, Yi Qing Luo really thought that the person in front of her was the same Yi Qing Qian who had been tortured into a meat patty by her when the dark forces invaded the West Continent. However, it was only for a moment. Yi Qing Luo immediately rejected her own thoughts, because, although the person in front of him had the exact same face as Yi Qing Qian, but whether it was the tone of voice or the temperament, it was totally not the aura that a woman like Yi Qing Qian could have. Moreover, according to the first time he fought with the Deputy Palace Master during the Holy Maiden Selection ceremony of the Miao tribe, the Second Palace Master didn't know her at all, and his tone was completely different. "What? Seeing that sister is still alive, shouldn't you be a little happier?" Second Palace Mistress curled her red lips, fully releasing the charm of Yi Qing Qian's face. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she suddenly had another guess in her mind. She pondered for a moment, then stared at the Vice Palace Master and smiled tentatively. "Is that so? If you really are my good sister, I will naturally be happy." Sure enough, when he heard her words, the Assistant Palace Master's expression changed slightly. The pair of seductive, beautiful eyes flickered a few times. Yi Qing Luo was even more certain of her own thoughts as she used her hand to support her lower jaw, putting on an astonished look. "I've heard that the dark forces have a certain sacred technique which looks exactly the same as my good sister. Seeing it today, it's indeed so." Chapter 2952. This palace lord is indeed not Yi Qing Qian. Second Palace Lord admitted readily as she raised her brows frivolously, but this body, this face, is indeed Yi Qing Qian's. Early on, Wolf Saint Fa treated Yi Qing Qian specially. Yi Qing Luo roughly guessed it. After all, Wolf Saint Fa's expression towards Yi Qing Qian was really not love. Later on, she heard that Yi Qing Qian was merely a substitute for Wolf Saint Fa's moonlight. Yi Qing Luo understood, but if she didn't remember wrongly, haven't Yi Qing Qian's face and body been destroyed by me? That battle in the West Continent, Yi Qing Luo had destroyed Yi Qing Qian's face, and even her body had become minced meat. Basically, she was no longer in human form. Wolf Saint Fa actually had a way to use that broken body to revive the person in front of him. Dark secret arts, it's a darkness that you will never be able to imagine. Second Palace Lord's eyes were filled with delight. Yi Qing Luo's vision swept past the Second Palace Lord's face, which was completely similar to Yi Qing Qian's. "So, you're the woman that Wolf Saint Fa has been pining for, Fox Saint Fa." That time, after Yi Qing Qian joined the Dark Forces, her name was changed by the Wolf Saint law to protect her who, presumably, Wolf Saint Fa had treated Yi Qing Qian as a substitute right from the start. Second Palace Lord, who was also Fox Saint Fa, curled her red lips as her fingers gently caressed her chin. "That's right, this Palace Lord is Fox Saint Fa." Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed slightly. Indeed, this second palace lord was Wolf Saint Fa, who used the dark secret arts, using Yi Ching Qian's body as a medium to revive Fox Saint Fa. This kind of secret art is extremely evil. In her mind, Old Man Song's exclamation suddenly rang. Forbidden secret arts, the reason why it's forbidden is because this kind of taboo has already exceeded the limits of what this world can tolerate. Using forbidden secret arts, not only will it disturb the world's balance, it will also disturb the world's order. Using a forbidden secret skill requires the same price. Old Man Song let out a light sigh. Fox Saint Technique should have died a long time ago, and his corpse might not even be complete. Wolf Saint Technique used some sort of method to forcefully keep the soul of Fox Saint Technique in order to find a perfect vessel to resurrect Fox Saint Technique. But to resurrect a dead person, this goes against the laws of nature. If the Fox Sacred Technique succeeds in resurrecting, the Wolf Sacred Technique will definitely pay the same price. Yi Ching Luo raised her brows. In other words, the current Wolf Saint Technique is trash. You can't say that. After all, the dark forces have already joined the palace of gloomy darkness. Old Man Song answered very straightforwardly. The background of the Palace of Darkness is still unclear, but it should be said that they have a way to extend the life of the Wolf Saint Technique. However, the only thing he could be sure of now was the Wolf Saint Law's body was indeed not as good as before. Otherwise, why would the Wolf Saint Technique be so in love with the Fox Saint Technique, to the point where he could even disregard his own life? They would absolutely not let Fox Saint Law lead the people from Abyss Palace to deal with Yi Ching Luo alone. Yi Ching Luo. Seeing that Yi Ching Luo didn't reply for a long time, Fox Saint Law's expression sunk a little as he opened his mouth impatiently. Although this palace lord isn't Yi Ching Qian, but since this palace lord has taken over this body, then this body's hatred. Chapter 2953. Yi Ching Luo laughed out loud because of Fox Sacred Law sentence. She laughed till her eyes were curved as she ridiculed. Fox Sacred Law, second palace mistress of secluded palace, trying to kill me and finding so many excuses. Aren't you embarrassed? A cold glint flashed past Fox Sacred Law's eyes as she waved her hand, and a 9-segment long whip swiftly appeared in her hands. Her bare hands were covered with moss as her eyes were filled with a cold glint as she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily, "Kill!" Following Fox Sacred Law's words, thousands of people from secluded palace started to raise their arms and shout loudly, so shocked that the Miao tribesmen started to tremble. "Spare us. Second palace mistress, we are not on the same side as that slut. Second palace mistress, you can do whatever you want to this slut. We are innocent." The Miao tribesmen continued to plead for mercy, but it didn't stop the secluded palace's disciples from shouting. On the contrary, it ignited their fighting spirit. These secluded palace's disciples had undergone a period of brainwashing in secluded palace. Towards secluded palace, they were completely obedient. Now looking at the slightly famous Miao tribesmen in North Wave Continent, being so terrified and kept begging for mercy, they felt extremely complacent, and felt that joining secluded palace was indeed the right choice. Grand Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao walked towards Yi Ching Luo in quick steps as they looked at the chaotic scene. "Miss Yi, if secluded palace really came for you, you should bear this responsibility." Yi Ching Luo had been concentrating on Fox Sacred Law's actions. Suddenly, she felt 2 bursts of energy attacking her from behind, especially after hearing the shameless words spoken by the great Elder Miao. Yi Ching Luo's gaze turned cold. She wanted to send the 2 sneak attacking people flying with a backhand kick, but at the same time, the 9-segment long whip in Fox Sacred Law's hands had already turned into an afterimage as it swept towards Yi Ching Luo's face. Attacks from the front and back. This made Yi Ching Luo's expression sunk instantly. She swiftly changed her footwork and was about to leap forward to let these two waves of attacks collide with her. But just at this moment, a tender voice was heard from behind. "Qing Luo, just focus on dealing with the secluded palace. This group of fools, let me teach them what brains are." Immediately following that, Yi Qing Luo sensed that the two bursts of energy which were closing in on her had been blocked by a sickle which was flickering with black rays. Yan Xiao Yi's pretty face was filled with coldness. "You tolerate them a lot on account of Yi's face, but I won't. This group of scum, I'll hack one of them to death with one saber strike." The moment Yan Xiao Yi moved, Qiao Jin and Peach naturally followed suit. For a moment, the scene became extremely chaotic. Yi Qing Luo did not turn back. Behind her was a group of brothers who had fought alongside her. She would definitely protect him well. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were icy cold as her thoughts moved. A huge black leopard howled at the sky. When those thick limbs landed on the ground, they smashed 4 huge holes. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. It shocked the secluded Darkness Palace disciples who were surrounding him, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. "What are you afraid of? It was just a leopard. Can it be as powerful as our second palace, Lord's blood sacrifice?" After the secluded Darkness Palace's disciples saw that black leopard, they swallowed a mouthful of saliva, as though they were convincing themselves, and also as though they were convincing others. Blood sacrifice was the name of that dinosaur-like magical beast which Mei and Yan Jinfei were standing on. Chapter 2954. Don't be afraid. Let's attack directly. The Nether Palace's disciples were ignited with fighting spirit. All of them raised their weapons up high as they charged forward, once again. In their eyes, no matter how powerful Yi Qing Luo and the others were, they were merely a few people. As for them, there were several thousands of them, and they were the Nether Palace's disciples whose power was close to the Imperial Palace. Those Miao people were already scared out of their wits as they curled up on one side, shivering. What they wanted to deal with was merely Yi Qing Luo and a few others. Thousands of people. How could they not deal with a few kids? Moreover, they still had the secret weapon from the Nether Palace. Fox Saint Technique's eyes were filled with a venomous glint as she stared fixedly at Yi Qing Luo's unperturbed expression, and then looked at the surrounding secluded palace's disciples with a look of high morale. Her eyes were filled with pride. Just a silly leopard, and you want to turn the situation around? She laughed coldly as her lips twitched. Yi Qing Luo, no matter if it's Yi Qing Qian's hatred or the hatred between you and the dark forces, today, I will avenge them all. Her long whip coiled, totally not showing any mercy. The sound of the long whip sweeping through the air was piercingly cold. It was maddening. If one leopard isn't enough, then how about adding another bird? Facing Fox Saint F's provocation, Yi Qing Luo didn't have any intention of being moved. Her tone was very calm. Her eyes were sparkling like stars, extremely resplendent. But if one took a closer look, one could tell that under this resplendent, there was a hidden killing intent. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as she cried out a name, "Qian!" Swoosh! A piercing sound pierced through the sky as it reverberated over. Immediately following that was a golden flowing light which dazzled one's eyes. On the horizon, the scorching flames enveloped everything. It also caused the torches in the Nether Palace's disciples' hands to dim down. Hua hua hua! Another piercing sound in the air, bringing along a whirlwind-like airwave. Everyone's gazes at this instance were all attracted by the shadow on the horizon. The golden flames revolved as it scattered a dazzling ray. Every phoenix feather seemed as though it was bathed in fire, bathing in that flickering flame. Swoosh! There was another sound. The huge flaming thing in the sky spread its wings. The phoenix feathers were flowing with light and vibrant colors. It's a phoenix. No, That's not a phoenix, it's a vermilion bird. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the vermilion bird. Vermilion bird? How? How could there be a vermilion bird? The appearance of red flame. Not only were the palace of darkness disciples shocked, even the tribesmen of the Miao tribe were so shocked by the blazing flames that they could only open their mouths in disbelief. Do you think this is enough? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows slightly, smiling quietly and elegantly. Fox Saint Law's pupils instantly constricted. The Fox Saint Law raised his head and stared at Qian. Don't you feel that I look very familiar? Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth with a light smile as she asked the question that Fox Saint Fa had in his heart. How could this vermilion bird not be familiar? Ever since the 4 great ancient sacred beasts fell into a deep slumber, the King of Darkness had always been searching for a way to awaken the 4 saint beasts. Furthermore, he wanted to form a contract with the 4 great sacred beasts. The first target that the King of Darkness had set his eyes on was Vermilion Bird, because Vermilion Bird's flame was totally different from other fire-attributed magical beasts. Vermilion Bird was a flame which contained light and dark elements. It was most suitable to be used by the dark forces to control people's hearts. Chapter 2955. Although Fox Sacred Law had died early, but she had participated in many activities regarding the Vermilion Bird. Basically, she was certain that this Vermilion Bird belonged to the dark forces. Why, would it become Yi Qing Luo's war pet? Yi Qing Luo saw Fox Sacred Law's shocked and puzzled expression and didn't open her mouth to explain. She only raised her head and squinted her eyes as she stared at Qi Yan and said calmly, I'll leave these people to you and Shi Ju. Clang! A cry resounded through the 9 heavens. Qi Yan's arrogant voice followed. Just these scums. You still need this sacred beast to make a move. Ugly freak, you're too weak. I asked you to make a move, and you still have so much *T. Do you want me to seal you in the pet space before you're satisfied? Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. Qi Yan indeed quietened down. Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze and returned it to Fox Sacred Law. Fox Sacred Law's fingers clenched tightly, apparently infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's provocation. Her eyes were scarlet red as she growled sinisterly. This palace mistress wants to see how 2 magical beasts are going to turn the tables. She didn't place her hopes on those Nether Palace disciples. She directly waved the 9-segment whip in her hand towards a direction behind her. All of you attack! Rumble! An earth-shattering loud sound rang from the direction where Fox Sacred Law waved her whip. Immediately following that, puppets dressed in Nether Palace's guard uniform swarmed over. Dead corpse puppets! Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed as she speedily retreated a few steps. There were at least 100 over of those dead corpse puppets. No matter how fast Yi Qing Luo's speed was, they had already surrounded her in a swift speed. After the secret of the dead corpse puppets was exposed, the people from Nether Palace still dared to take out the dead corpse puppets, and scrupulously, they had long decided to massacre the Miao tribe, not leaving anyone alive, to protect the secret of these semi-finished products? Second Palace Mistress, you're incredible. Yan Zhenfei leapt down from the magical beast's body as she looked at Fox Sacred Law with admiration and respect. Mei, who was standing by the side, also tried to flatter her. That little scoundrel still wants to hoot with our Second Palace Mistress. Just based on her? She's just a little slut who relies on men. The Second Palace Lord raised his head arrogantly, looking high and mighty, as if he didn't want to talk to mortals. However, there was a hint of pride in his eyes. Obviously, the flattery of these 2 made her feel happy, both physically and mentally. As Yan Zhenfei sucked up to him, he looked excitedly in the direction the undead corpse puppets were heading in. He could not help but laugh out loud. Ha ha ha! Yi Qing Luo, This is our palace of seclusion's strongest weapon. Using it to end you is considered as giving you face. May's eyes were also fixed on that side. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, who was surrounded by the dead corpse puppets and totally unable to be seen, her face was filled with a sinister smile. Fox Saintess cast a sidelong glance at these two women who she looked down on. She asked indifferently, "It looks like the enmity between you and her isn't small." Yan Zhenfei's eyes were filled with viciousness. "That scoundrel destroyed my family. If not for the holy wolf technique taking me in, I would have been killed by that scoundrel." She was filled with resentment, but she did not notice it. After she finished her sentence, a cold glint flashed past Fox Saintess's eyes. This glint of cold glint was noticed by May, who always had many thoughts in her mind, but she had no intention to remind her. Chapter 2956. Snatch Your Man. Fox Sacred Law's interest was piqued by May's words. May clenched her fists tightly as she gritted her teeth and stared at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Right? So I hate her so much that I can't wait to disfigure her and throw her in front of that man, to let that man abandon her. Fox Sacred Law squinted her bewitching beautiful eyes as her vision landed on May's young and charming face, as she stared deeply for a long time. Suddenly she laughed softly. "This palace mistress is very curious. What kind of man is he, to be able to make you blame Yi Qing Luo instead of that man?" Why should I blame that man?" May's eyes flickered slightly as she asked in puzzlement. "If that man really loves you, why would he be snatched away by other women?" Fox Sacred Law brushed her long hair as she gave a fox-like bewitching smile. "Just like Wolf Sacred Law, because he loves this palace mistress, so no matter which woman appears, she will not be able to snatch him away from this palace mistress's hands." Although Fox Sacred Law's voice sounded very calm, as though it was an ordinary chat, but if one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the thick threat in it. Moreover, her gaze seemed to be drifting towards Yan Zhenfei. The meaning behind her words was very obvious, but Yan Zhenfei apparently didn't realize this point. She even nodded her head in agreement. Right? If it's true love, it will absolutely not be snatched away by other women. Wolf Sacred Law's heart towards Second Palace Mistress, we can all see it clearly. There is absolutely no one who snatched Wolf Sacred Law from Second Palace Mistress's hands. As Yan Zhenfei spoke, she suddenly felt that something was amiss. She took a careful look at Fox Sacred Law, but she met with Fox Sacred Law's icy cold face, as though it could freeze into frost at any moment. Her heart thumped hard. Could it be that she said something wrong? She was just going along with Second Palace Mistress's words. May's eyes were extremely cold as she hid the smile on her lips, thinking silently, "Ha, idiot!" Although on the surface, Second Palace Mistress didn't love Wolf Sacred Law, but Wolf Sacred Law had loved Second Palace Mistress for so many years, and had guarded Second Palace Mistress for so many years. And in order to revive Second Palace Mistress, he had done so many things. Even if Second Palace Mistress didn't like Wolf Sacred Law. However, the Second Palace Master was certain that the Wolf Saint Law was hers. Yan Zhenfei knew very well how she got her position as the emissary of the gloomy palace. Yan Zhenfei had seduced the Wolf Saint technique in exchange for it. For the Second Palace Master, Yan Zhenfei was her man's bed-warming maid. Facing Yan Zhenfei, the Second Palace Lord naturally did not have a good expression. However, Yan Zhenfei did not think that this was a big problem. Moreover, it was normal for a man to have 3 or 4 wives. She was so young, yet she followed an old man like Wolf Saint Law. Not competing with the Second Palace Master for the position of the first wife was already a good deed to the Second Palace Master. Naturally, he didn't think too much about other things. Fox Saint Technique realized that his words did not alarm Yan Zhenfei. Instead, she appeared to be fearless. She felt that Yan Zhenfei was showing off her relationship with the Wolf Saint Technique. Immediately Fox St. Law's face turned cold. Since Envoy Yen feels that what this palace lord said is right, then now this palace lord orders you to bring along these palace lord's guards to capture Yi Qing Luo alive and bring her back to secluded palace. Are you willing to accept this? Yen Zhenfei's face instantly turned pale. She almost collapsed onto the ground. Chapter 2957. Emissary Yen, the second palace lord only gave you this mission because he thinks highly of you. Don't let him down. Mei fanned the flames, but Mei's words had just landed. The fox sacred techniques, seductive gaze, had already landed on Mei. Since you have such a close relationship with Emissary Yen, you should accompany her. Mei's smile froze, no matter what the two of them were thinking. In the end, they could only listen to Fox Sacred Technique's command as they charged towards the direction of the 100 over puppets. With these 100 or so undead corpse puppets, no matter what, they should be safe. Mei and Yen Zhenfei were terrified of Yi Qing Luo's mysterious power. They could only use this excuse to pacify their emotions. The two of them stood on the left and right as they neared the puppets. An endless rotting stench entered their nostrils. They couldn't help but furrow their brows. But in order to ascertain whether Yi Qing Luo was alive or dead, they endured the rotting stench as they probed their senses. Usually, 20 to 30 puppets were disguised as the guards of Secluded Palace. Secluded Palace intentionally used a fragrance bag to conceal the stench on the puppets. But today, 100 over puppets appeared in a pile. The rotting stench on them couldn't be concealed at all. Mei and Yen Zhenfei, who were extremely concerned about their looks, naturally couldn't stand the stench. Even when they released their senses to sense Yi Qing Luo's aura, their brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. The perception of the two was constantly magnifying and spreading, until they searched through the 100 over puppets, but they didn't sense any other aura other than the puppets. Both of their eyes were filled with ecstasy. There was no trace of Yi Qing Luo's aura. That meant Yi Qing Luo was dead. Dead. Ha. Ha. Mei couldn't help but burst out laughing as her face was twisted with ecstasy. Yi Qing Luo is dead. She must be dead. Yen Zhenfei recalled Yi Qing Luo's craftiness, and although her eyes were filled with joy, but she still looked around vigilantly. Let's see the corpse first. Yi Qing Luo, that slut, is very crafty. Yi Qing Luo's aura was totally gone, and this made these two people who hated Yi Qing Luo so much, so ecstatic that they totally disregarded the rotten stench from those dead corpses. One on the left and one on the right, the two of them pushed aside the undead corpse puppets and rushed to the center. The order that the corpse puppets received was only to kill Yi Qing Luo. Yen Zhenfei and Mei also had the aura of Gloomy Palace. The corpse puppet didn't take the two of them seriously. Therefore, the two of them easily squeezed through the undead corpse puppets' encirclement. When the two of them were completely shrouded by the rancid odor, the encirclement was empty, causing them to be dumbfounded. Yen Zhenfei's eyes widened and she swallowed hard. The uneasiness in her heart was magnified. Corpses! Corpses! Why are there no corpses? Impossible. If that scoundrel wasn't here, then what were the guards attacking? Mei also shook her head in disbelief. But no matter how much they looked around, they could not see anything. They didn't even see that fiery figure. And those undead corpse puppets were still squeezing towards the center. Chapter 2958. It's Yi Qing Luo's remnant profound energy. Mei was the first to detect the target of the corpse puppets. That remnant profound energy was right at the place where they were standing. Mei immediately pulled Yen Zhenfei away as she retreated a few steps backwards. That immortal chi fluttered in the white muslin dress as it crashed onto the puppet's body, instantly being stained by the corroded corpse fluid on the puppet's body. What followed was an extremely thick, rotting smell. Mei's expression instantly turned black as something was churning in her stomach. whereas Yen Zhenfei, who was flung away by Mei, also staggered forward due to her sudden action. Just like that, he threw himself onto a puppet. Yen Zhenfei raised her head in a fluster. She met with the puppet's pair of empty and soulless eyes, which were so dark that there wasn't a single reflection. Ah! Yen Zhenfei screamed as she pushed the puppet away in terror. However, those puppets were indestructible corpses to begin with. Yen Zhenfei's push not only didn't push the puppet away. Instead, she was forced to retreat several steps by the puppet's strength. Looking at the surrounding numerous puppets brandishing their claws, raising the weapons in their hands as they slashed down directly, Yen Zhenfei cried for help in terror. "Sister Mei, save me! Save me!" He. A crisp laughter suppressed Yen Zhenfei's cry for help. After she heard that laughter clearly, Yen Zhenfei's pupils dilated as she stared at the direction where the voice came from. She saw a young lady in a fiery red dress floating in midair above the puppet's corpse as she leisurely smiled faintly at her. You. Yen Zhenfei was in disbelief. "It's not like I've never dealt with these corpse puppets before." Yi Qing Luo smiled enchantingly as her tone was filled with ridicule. "This kind of defective product. You still have the cheek to bring it in front of me?" Apparently, Secluded Darkness Palace's plan to attack the Miao clan wasn't premeditated, but it was a sudden move. There wasn't much planning at all. So she directly brought her men and charged over. These corpse puppets were on a totally different level from the guards at the Sacred Maiden Selection ceremony yesterday, as well as the 5 Secluded Darkness Palace guards they met in the underground tunnel. Secluded Darkness had said it before. Those guards from the Palace of Darkness were only half-finished products. In that case, these were even inferior to semi-finished products, which meant that they were just abandoned, defective products. Fox St. Law was really impatient. He brought along these defective goods and rushed to the Miao tribe to encircle and annihilate them. This knowledge made Yi Qing Luo even more certain of one thing. The Miao tribe indeed had a spy. They took the opportunity when the Sacred Maiden, the former Sacred Maiden, and DMO Xian were not around to launch a joint attack. In other words, the Secluded Palace had basically confirmed that DMO Xian had no way to rush over to join in the battle, so they hurriedly brought along this batch of defective goods to attack. This thought made Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. For things like Miao Gu, Yi Qing Luo didn't know much. There was no way to know if the Miao tribe's spy could detect that DMO Xian was poisoned. Previously, Yi Qing Luo had always thought that the people from Secluded Darkness Palace's motive was her. However, after seeing these defective puppets, Yi Qing Luo could roughly guess the main motive of Secluded Darkness Palace was to ascertain where DMO Xian was. If they could take this chance to deal with DMO Xian, that would naturally be the best. Even if they really couldn't deal with DMO Xian, taking down one Yi Qing Luo would be a gain for Secluded Darkness Palace. At the very least, they would swallow up the Miao tribe and make use of them. Chapter 2959. She was unable to ascertain if the other party knew that DMO Xian was poisoned. Yi Qing Luo didn't have the mood to delay any further. She leapt up, and the feather fan in her hands drew out several strong winds. Following that, numerous demonic red rays shot out from the red feather fan. Like thin red threads, they spread out to form a huge net, enveloping the corpses and puppets within. Mei and Yen Zhenfei, who were surrounded by numerous dead corpse puppets. Their expressions turned uglier by the minute. They struggled with all their might, trying to escape from the encirclement of the dead corpse puppets. But Yi Qing Luo's remaining profound energy made the dead corpse puppets completely lose control. It was easy for Mei and Yen Zhenfei to enter, but difficult to get out. Shouldn't you feel honored to die under the weapons that you're so proud of? Yi Qing Luo looked at the two of them who were struggling desperately, as she couldn't help but ridicule them. Yi Qing Luo, you scoundrel! Scoundrel! I won't die, I won't! Yen Zhen Fei screamed in rage. By now, how would Yen Zhen Fei still not understand? Right from the start, Yi Qing Luo didn't reveal herself, intentionally luring them into the encirclement of the dead corpse puppets. Then she used her remaining profound energy to attract the dead corpse puppets. Because of the command, she totally disregarded the both of them and directly attacked. This move of killing with a borrowed knife, Yi Qing Luo used it flawlessly. Yen Zhen Fei felt an endless rotting stench, as though it was going to swallow her up. She was terrified as she screamed, "Second Palace Lord, please stop the command. Stop." The only plan now was to make Second Palace Lord stop the command to the dead corpse puppets. But no matter how Yen Zhen Fei screamed, from the start till the end, Second Palace Lord hadn't said a single word. Yen Zhen Fei's screams were buried by the sound of the puppets colliding. And then there was no more sound. Even Mei, who hadn't made a single sound, had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, on the magical beast named Blood Sacrifice, which was like a dinosaur, Fox Saint F.A. was leaning on the soft mat, as his brows creased tightly. A cold voice rang beside his ear. "What do you think about this lass called Yi Qing Luo?" That voice was like a venomous snake, so cold that it sent shivers down one's spine. However, the 4 disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were protecting the Fox Saint technique were still standing straight, as if they hadn't heard anything. In fact, only Hu Xing-Fe alone could hear that cold voice. To be able to catch the eye of the Palace Master, there is naturally a reason for the Palace Master. Fox Saint Law replied indifferently. At such a young age, she has such a deep mind. She's not an easy girl to deal with. The cold voice sneered. No wonder the Palace Master asked me to come here. Fox Saint Law squinted her beautiful eyes, seeming to be a little indignant. Why is it that everyone says that the little scoundrel is powerful, but this palace mistress doesn't think that there's anything to fear about her? Towards Yi Qing Luo, it wasn't only because of Yi Qing Qian's body, but also the hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. She herself had an unexplainable hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. Do you really think that this move of borrowing a knife to kill is just luck? The gloomy and cold voice is obviously jealous of the Fox holy technique a little cold. Fox Saint Law frowned. Tell this palace mistress, if it's not luck, then what is it? If it wasn't for the fact that she understands her character, would she be able to guess that you would push those 2 trash out to die? The gloomy and cold voice had a rare interest, as it really started to explain. Chapter 2960. And this interest made Fox Saint Law even more jealous. That lass's acuity is extremely strong. From the moment you let those defective products attack her, she must have thought of a plan. She also knows the characters of you and the 2 abandoned pawns very well. She knows that when she is in trouble, Yen Zhenfei and Mei, the 2 abandoned pawns, will come out to mock her. She also knows what you are thinking. The gloomy cold voice was mixed with a hint of laughter. It was the kind of excited laughter that one's blood was boiling after meeting a prey. Even if it was Fox Saint Law, under this strange, gloomy cold laughter, she couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. She curled her fingers tightly. Her arrogant mentality made her unwilling to admit her fear towards the gloomy cold voice. She forced herself to stand up straight and gave a disdainful harumph. This palace mistress doesn't believe that scoundrel has such a scheming mind. It's just that her luck is a little better, and she's relying on the backing of the Overlord. The gloomy cold voice didn't add any more words towards Fox Saint Law's strong support. Instead, it minded its own business and started talking about Yi Qing Luo, that lass's actions, although it looks very simple, but in actual fact, to be like her, to borrow a knife to kill someone, and to borrow it so perfectly, even you. Second palace mistress can't do it. The gloomy cold voice disregarded Fox Saint Luo's arrogant words. Once again, it praised Yi Qing Luo. This kind of action was a heavy slap on Fox Saint Luo's face. And now, it was using Fox Saint Luo to compare with Yi Qing Luo. Thinking that Fox Saint Luo couldn't be compared to Yi Qing Luo. This kind of words fell into the arrogant Fox Saint Luo's ears, and the disgust towards Yi Qing Luo in his heart grew even more. And his disdain towards Yi Qing Luo grew even more. Don't be unconvinced. The gloomy, cold voice gave a few cold laughs. These 100 over puppets, although they are all defective products. But after all, there are quite a lot of them. Under the condition of not hurting a single puppet, leaving behind a strand of profound qi, and speedily getting away from the puppet's encirclement, to restrain those puppets. To be able to do this, not only does one need to be extremely fast, one also must be able to control one's profound energy freely and have 100% confidence. She wants to leave the encirclement of the puppets while holding her breath without anyone noticing. And she also wants to control the remaining profound energy. Let me ask you, Second Palace Master, are you able to do it? At this point, the cold voice paused and threw out a rhetorical question. The question caused Ling Hu, Xingfa's face, to turn pale. After the 2 chess pieces fell into the trap, she sat up. She used the dead corpse puppet's unwillingness to give up until they reached their goal. She ordered the dead corpse puppets to encircle the 2 chess pieces. It's also very difficult to control this. This girl is really an interesting prey. I can't wait to bring this prey home and teach teacher Zhou a good lesson. Stop your wishful thinking. Fox Saint Luo's eyes were dark and ruthless. Her seductive expression no longer existed, and her eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. She is someone that the palace lord has taken a fancy to. You dare to snatch her from the palace lord? The gloomy, cold voice didn't say another word. Fox Saint Luo gave a cold laugh as she squinted her beautiful eyes. That scoundrel has been described by you to be so mysterious. This palace lord would like to try how powerful that scoundrel is. Fox Saint Luo gave a cold harumph as a powerful, profound energy, fluctuation, exploded from her body. Chapter 2961. Yi Qing Luo was on high alert as she surveyed the surroundings, releasing her senses. In his mind, Old Man Tsang's voice was very anxious. What a dense, evil energy! Although it was only for an instant. I can be sure that it came from the Earth Realm, from the Hell Palace. From Old Man Tsang's explanation, Yi Qing Luo knew. The Hell Palace was an evil palace in the Upper Realm. The Underworld Palace, as its name suggested, was a place known as Hell on Earth. The people inside were basically not human anymore. They had all cultivated evil arts and turned into monsters that were neither human nor ghost. Compared to the small forces outside of the upper realm like the dark forces, it was even more terrifying. After all, the Underworld Palace was filled with a bunch of lunatics who researched all sorts of evil arts. A bunch of madmen who didn't care about their lives at all. It could be said that the people of the Earth domain would tremble in fear when the Underworld Palace was mentioned. No one dared to provoke the Underworld Palace. No one was willing to provoke the Underworld Palace. Who would dare to provoke someone who didn't want to live? After Yi Qing Luo heard all these, the expression on her face congealed. Hell manner? Did someone from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness invite a madman from the Underworld Palace to help? We still do not know what the power behind the secluded palace of Tenebrous Palace is. Are they hired as helpers, or are they in cahoots with the Underworld Palace? All of these are possible. Old Man Tsang's tone was extremely heavy. Girl, if the people from the Underworld Palace make a move, if you can escape, it's best to escape as much as possible. Old Man Tsang added another sentence in the end, to be able to make Old Man Tsang say the word escape. From this, it could be seen exactly how powerful that so-called Underworld Palace was. Yi Qing Luo sensed the surroundings for a long time. He didn't sense anything strange at all. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo's body moved. Her Her strong sense of perception allowed her to evade swiftly. A powerful gust of wind exploded from the place where she had just been standing. The terrifying chi waves surged like a tide. The surrounding Miao tribesmen were so terrified that they screamed out loud. Just how powerful was he? How profound was his profound rank to be able to create such a sensation? Vice Palace Master of Dark Abyss Palace, he was actually so powerful. The Miao tribesmen's fear towards the Palace of Darkness deepened once again. Compared to the shock and fear of the Miao tribesmen, Yi Qingluo's expression was extremely calm. Her cold eyes glanced sideways at the place where she had just been standing and the shockwave created. She narrowed her eyes and looked towards the direction where the profound energy had come from. Fox Saint Fa opened her arms and floated in midair. Her veil fluttered, and her profound energy continued to surge. Finally willing to take action yourself. Yi Qingluo sneered in ridicule. Fox Saint's eyes turned slightly cold. Her exquisite and seductive face looked sinister and awe-inspiring. Yi Qingluo, it's your honor to die in this palace master's hands. As soon as he finished speaking, the Fox Saint technique flew out. Her hands were soft and boneless, drawing out countless roaring profound energy. That profound energy cut through the air, extremely piercingly cold. When it was charging straight at them, Yi Qingluo's heart suddenly felt hot. She narrowed her eyes and carefully stared at the profound heart jade on the Fox Saint Fa's chest. A yellow-quality, profound jade heart was releasing an extremely dazzling golden light. Yellow-grade, profound heart jade. Yi Qingluo speedily retreated a few steps as she gave a cold smile. She had not expected that after the Fox Saint technique took over Yi Qingqian's body, it also took over Yi Qingqian's profound heart jade. But this quality of profound heart jade. Chapter 2962. Lass, you still need to be careful. This woman has that evil chi on her. She should have had direct contact with the people from the Hell Palace. Old Man Tsang reminded her in his divine sense. Yi Qingluo clenched the glower flame fan in her hand. Her gaze stared unblinkingly at Fox Saint Law, whose beautiful eyes were filled with hatred. That intense hatred. It was extremely obvious. A woman in rage and hatred has unlimited potential. Her enmity towards me is too deep, not only because of jealousy but also. That evil chi unknowingly affected her. Yi Qingluo just took one look and saw through the root of it. Old Man Tsang also thought so. Indeed so, evil chi is the easiest thing to affect people's hearts. While they were talking, Fox Saint Law's second wave of attack once again came swiftly. Phew! A sound of air breaking was heard. That force directly swept past Yi Qingluo's dress. It carried an extremely biting cold. The strong wind suddenly rose, making Yi Qingluo backhand, open the glower flame fan, and immediately counterattacked. Boom! A loud sound. Two forces exploded in midair. Yi Qingluo's figure was forced to retreat a few steps. The force which brushed past her dress also shattered her sleeves. The red like fire sleeves turned into rags, fluttering along with the hurricane. Yi Qingluo frowned, glancing sideways at her own wide sleeve, leaving only a white inner garment. Yellow-grade, profound jade heart. It was actually able to release such a powerful force. Looked like she had underestimated Fox Saint Law. Yi Qingluo might as well tore off the other wide sleeve and flung it aside. Without the obstruction of the wide sleeve, it was even more enjoyable to fight. In the air, the two forces of profound waves were still rippling. Everyone was shocked by the power in the air as their hearts trembled. In everyone's eyes, although Yi Qingluo's sleeve was shattered, but Fox Saint Law was forced by Yi Qingluo to retreat more than 10 meters, and even stood firmly in a rather sorry state. It could be said that this confrontation, both of them didn't gain any advantage. They really couldn't see the gap between the two strength. But because they couldn't see, everyone's admiration towards Yi Qing Luo was even more. One must know that Yi Qing Luo was just a 15-year-old girl. His opponent was the Evil Palace's second palace master, who was on par with the Monarch Palace. To be able to fight to a draw, Yi Qing Luo was already very impressive. Fox Saint Technique was startled for a moment by this clash. A trace of anger gradually appeared in her enchanting eyes. Her brows creased tightly as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Fox Sacred Technique. Just one move and you're admitting defeat? Unfortunately, under Fox Sacred Technique's vengeful gaze, Yi Qing Luo still had to tease him with a tender smile. Fox Saint Law's pupils were instantly dyed red, profound qi once again exploding. The attack was swift and fierce. Yi Qing Luo's glower flame fan opened up and the raging profound energy blended with the glower flame fan. A huge red dragon emerged from the glowing flame fan. Boom, boom, boom! The red dragon soared into the sky and covered half of the sky. Roar! Clang, clang! When the red dragon appeared, the roars of Shi Ju and Qi Yan also resounded. The sky above the entire Miao tribe was filled with the roars of wild beasts. It was earth-shattering, deafening. It attracted all the surrounding magical beasts, as they couldn't help but start their escape mode. That's a dragon. Dragon. Second Elder, Miao, pointed at the red dragon in shock. Chapter 2963. Profound Energy. Created? Fourth Elder Miao's pupils constricted as his face was filled with shock or terror. She's already so strong that she can use the profound energy to form a material object to attack? The flying dragon, which was circling in midair, kept on flying. Boundless dark force surged wildly. What kind of monster is this lady? We have two freakishly powerful battle pets and a dragon. This isn't a real dragon. It's profound energy, it's profound energy. The secluded palace's disciples who were battling with Shi Ju, Qi Yan, and Yan Shao Yi were shocked by the scene. Thousands of people, under the attack of the two battle pets, had no way to resist at all. But now, after seeing the red dragon that Yi Qing Luo released, all their arrogance was suppressed. When the Fox Saint Law saw the giant dragon, she frowned slightly. She wasn't shocked, just that she couldn't believe it. However, when the red dragon charged down with a tyrannical, profound qi, Lin Fan's eyes widened. Fox Saint Law had no choice but to believe that this was not a smokescreen. Her face instantly turned pale. The dragon head, which was charging towards her, was roaring and brandishing its claws, as though it was going to swallow her up completely. She was fast, but no matter how fast she was, she couldn't be faster than the dragon. In a moment of desperation, Fox Saint Law's eyes flashed. Dead corpse puppets! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Following Fox Saint Law's command, those dead corpse puppets, which were originally surrounding the profound energy which Yi Qing Luo created and attacking crazily, all rushed towards Fox Saint Law. Bam, bam, bam. The red dragon's power instantly landed on the undead corpse puppets. A few deafening sounds were heard. Pieces of badly mutilated flesh splattered in all directions. Those were the dead corpse puppets, which were blasted into powder by the red dragon's power. These dead corpse puppets were all defective products. Many of them were still in the midst of cleaning up the corpse gas and rotting corpse water. This explosion. Instantly it was filled with a rotten stench. Fox Saint Law was the closest. The moment when the dead corpse puppets exploded. Fox Saint Law's entire body was covered with large pieces of minced meat and corpse water. There wasn't any sticky blood, but that corpse water was stained with the minced meat, and it was in the middle of her forehead. Fox Saint Law's throat rolled. He was furious again. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Fox Saint Fa's entire body reeked of a disgusting stench, and she was so disgusted that she was totally unable to tolerate it. The venom in her eyes towards Yi Qing Luo was burning more and more intensely, whereas Yi Qing Luo, who was by the side, slowly retracted the profound energy which she had released. The gathering of the roars dissipated bit by bit. Yi Qing Luo moved her palm. The devouring flame fan closed. The aura of the red dragon also dissipated. She gracefully stood amidst the flesh and blood on the ground. Even though both her sleeves had been destroyed, it still did not affect her otherworldly temperament. His monstrous aura caused others to submit. This move was executed. In addition, Yan Zhenfei and Mei had died. In the end, Fox Saint Law was also battered and exhausted. The arrogance of the dark Nether Palace disciples had long been suppressed. Obviously, Yi Qing Luo's side only had 2 pets and a few young students. Gui Wu had yet to make a move. They already felt there was no doubt that they would lose this battle. Fox Saint Law pressed down on his heart, mobilizing the remaining profound qi in his profound jade heart. Her face was filled with blood stains, and her body was filled with a rotten stench, which made the cold intent in her eyes deepened. Not resigned, she couldn't just admit defeat to that scoundrel. This broken body, the profound jade heart's quality was actually so low, she couldn't even use 1/3 of her former strength. If it was her in the past. Chapter 2964. Jia, Jia, Jia. That cold voice once again rang in the Fox Saint Technique's ears. Fox Saint Technique seemed to have been ridiculed, and his scarlet eyes widened in anger and humiliation. What's so funny? It's just that this body is too broken. It's not my true strength. Even now, you still don't believe this seat's words? The gloomy voice laughed coldly, full of disdain. You're not that girl's opponent. Just one move. Fox Saint Law had clearly suffered a great loss. But Fox Saint Law was still confident that he didn't lose to Yi Qing Luo, but lost to his own body. Fox Saint Law, indeed, felt that way, especially after the cold and gloomy voice said those words without any disguise. The fury in the depths of Fox Saint F's eyes grew even more exuberant. Who said that this palace lord is inferior to her? If not for this body, this palace master would have long captured that scoundrel alive. Tisk, tsk, tisk. That cold voice sneered again. Shut up, shut up. Fox Saint Law had a sinister look on his face as he roared angrily. Meanwhile, Yi Qing Luo's eyes stared intently at the Fox Saint Technique, and in her mind was old man Tsang's vigilant voice. Lass! It was that evil aura again. The aura coming from Fox Saint Law's body is from the underworld palace. Coincidentally, he heard the angry roar of the Fox Saint Technique. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed little by little. Since I've confirmed that the evil energy came from the Fox Saint Technique, then I can only kill the Fox Saint Technique first. Her words caused old man Tsang to panic. Little Luo, don't be silly. With your current strength, it's impossible for you to defeat the madman from the underworld palace. Their goal? I still can't tell. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly as the expression on her face was extremely grave. Ah Xian is still curing the goo. If I escape and they find a Xian, what should I do? Old man Tsang was momentarily speechless. The reason why the palace of gloomy darkness would appear here. It was nothing more than taking advantage of Mo Xian's absence, which also meant that the people from the Palace of Darkness had at least 70% and above certainty that Mo Xian would not be able to rush over to save them at this moment. If Yi Qing Luo brought her brothers and ran away, the people of the Miao tribe were not important. But Mo Xian, who was curing the goo in Miao tribe, Yi Qing Luo indeed couldn't escape and couldn't escape. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly as her gaze turned biting cold. Since he couldn't escape, he had to face it head-on, as long as he killed the Fox Saint Technique before the evil energy leaked out. He might even be able to stop that madman from the underworld palace from appearing. Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyes and glanced at the azure dew ring that had replaced the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. On the top of the ring, there were even wisps of frightening red light flowing around. It seemed that he still had to use the power of the divine artifact. Now her body was being suppressed by the heart tranquility bead. Even if I use the power of a divine tool, I still need you to control whether or not it will lead to a backlash from the profound jade heart. Just as he was thinking about this, Yi Qing Luo suddenly raised her head as her eyes swiftly shot towards the direction of the Fox Saint technique. An incomparably powerful and tyrannical aura suddenly burst out. In an instant, it engulfed the entire Miao tribe's entrance. When Yi Qing Luo's vision shifted onto Fox Saint technique at the same time, a burst of bright and resplendent light enveloped Fox Saint technique within it. The surging profound qi was like a tide as it surged with tyrannical waves, forcefully breaking apart the pressure which Yi Qing Luo had laid out. Chapter 2965. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly expanded. What was going on? Within Fox Saint Law's body, would such dense, profound energy suddenly rise explosively? He had actually managed to tear her pressure apart. How was it possible for Fox Saint Law to explode such powerful, profound energy in such a short period of time? Not good. Fox Saint Law's profound grade is continuing to explode. Old Man Song also sensed the change in Fox Saint Law's aura and immediately reminded her. Profound grade exploding. Serene Een was already dead. What other methods did Secluded Palace have to make use of demonic qi to raise profound energy in a short period of time? Yi Qing Luo was filled with doubts, and at this moment, Fox Saint Law's profound grade exploding was also filled with doubts. Fox Saint Law only felt that her profound jade heart was about to explode. The swelling feeling made her feel that her heart was about to explode in the next moment. Endless, raging flames, desperately burning everything about her, making her unable to endure this kind of pain. Her voice was hoarse as she whimpered in pain. Don't you feel that because of this body that doesn't belong to you, you lost to that lass? This seat shall give you this chance to let you wipe away your previous humiliation. A sinister voice rang eerily while Fox Saint Law was in pain, and that surging energy in her body and the scorching feeling of the raging flames made Fox Saint Law unable to say a single word. Ah! The last heart-wrenching scream came out from Fox Saint Law's mouth. That gush of dazzling light which wrapped around Fox Saint Law at this moment exploded in all directions. Those bursts of light were like fine threads, densely shooting out. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned sharp as her feather fan waved. She looked sharply at Yen Xiao-yi and the rest. Be careful. Avoid these light rays. With Yi Qing Luo's reminder, although the few of them were in a sorry state, but they managed to avoid those densely packed light rays. But the surrounding Secluded Palace's disciples, as well as the Miao tribesmen, weren't so lucky. Fox Saint Law's eyes were still shut tightly, her hands clenched into fists, her entire body tensed up, as though she was gathering all her energy. Numerous light rays shook off from her body as it spread to the surroundings. It turned into streaks of light, like sharp blades. Everywhere he passed, blood splattered and severed limbs flew in all directions. This bloody scene caused the Palace of Darkness and the Miao tribe to wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. And at this time, the Fox Saint technique that had been injected with limitless power had no time to care about the chaos it had created. Under the corrosion of the demonic aura, there was only one thought in his mind. That was to kill Yi Qing Luo. She wanted everyone who looked down on her to shut their mouths. She wanted to let everyone know that she, the Fox Saint Law, relied on her own strength to sit in this position. Bang, bang, bang. The stronger the will, the fiercer the profound energy on the Fox Saint technique's body attacked. A powerful pressure exploded in the surrounding air, creating huge vortexes. The disciples and clansmen of both sides suffered heavy casualties under this oppressive might. Such a turn of events. First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao could not help but turn pale. The both of them had been paying close attention to Yi Qing Luo. Just as Yi Qing Luo was reminding his brother, he followed Yi Qing Luo's words and dodged the light rays which shot over from the surroundings. They had managed to survive, but among the Miao tribesmen there were at least hundreds of them who had died under those dense light rays, before they had the chance to settle these injured tribesmen. Chapter 2966. Seeing more and more Miao tribesmen fleeing in all directions while wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. Great Elder Miao's fists clenched tighter and tighter. Eldest brother, why don't we beg Missy? As long as she nods her head, let the Overlord bring the Imperial Palace's disciples to appear, and Miao tribe will be saved. Second Elder Miao suggested anxiously. Great Elder Miao's eyes flashed as though he was moved. Fourth Elder Miao, who was hiding by the side, revealed a contemptuous smile as he looked at Yi Qing Luo and sneered. Second brother, have you gone senile? Do you think someone like Yi Qing Luo will listen to our pleas? Earlier, how did Miao tribe treat her? It's already considered as her mercy that she didn't exterminate us personally. Fourth Elder Miao's words made Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao fall into silence. When Fourth Elder Miao saw this, he struck while the iron was hot. Also, if the Overlord is really a Miao tribe, he might really appear. Based on his character of valuing Yi Qing Luo so much, he would have appeared the moment Miao tribe was surrounded by secluded palace. How could he not be seen until now? Great Elder Miao's face turned paler. Either the Overlord isn't in Miao tribe, or the Overlord himself can't make it in time. Fourth Elder Miao continued to analyze. Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao exchanged glances as they were drenched in cold sweat. Actually, they had a thought in their hearts. Yi Qing Luo was here. Mo Xian would definitely appear. But after hearing Fourth Elder Miao's analysis, they then realized the seriousness of the matter. If the Overlord didn't make it in time, just based on Yi Qing Luo and those few kids who hadn't even grown out their hair, they were absolutely not secluded palace's match, even if there was a mirage beast-grade leopard, adding on to the vermilion bird, which looked like one of the 4 sacred beasts. But it was still impossible to go against the entire secluded palace. Look, the second palace lord had shown his prowess. They didn't even have a chance to breathe. Seeing the Miao tribe's casualties increasing, Great Elder Miao's heart tightened even more. Eldest brother, second brother, I have a suggestion. Fourth Elder Miao saw that their emotions were already under his control, so he took the opportunity to speak out. The two of them immediately looked at Fourth Elder Miao with hopeful eyes. Fourth Elder Miao lowered his voice and said helplessly, "Now we can only rely on the Palace of Darkness to protect the Miao tribe." Join. Great Elder Miao was startled. If the Miao tribe surrendered to the Palace of Darkness, the Miao tribe would no longer be an independent power. It was a subsidiary of the Palace of Darkness. Elders like them would also become slaves of the Dark Nether Palace. How could Great Elder Miao be willing to be under someone else? This is the only way to protect the Miao tribe. Otherwise, if the people from secluded Darkness Palace annihilate our Miao tribe, we won't even be able to live. Fourth Elder Miao could see First Elder Miao's hesitation. But joining the Palace of Gloomy Darkness requires the approval of the Saintess. Although Second Elder Miao was a little tempted, this was still a big deal. Saintess. Fourth Elder Miao sneered. Ever since Miao Yi accepted the Gu King's inheritance, she has disappeared. Now that the Miao tribe is in such great trouble, she still hasn't appeared. What's the use of having a saintess like her? Speaking of Miao Yi, then he thought of what Miao Yi had done. Chapter 2967. Under Fourth Elder Miao's deliberate instigation, First Elder Meow and Second Elder Meow's initial hesitation had already nodded their heads and decided, in order to protect the Meow clan, we will rely on the secluded palace. Ah, Yi Qing Luo didn't have the mood to pay attention to this episode. Her brows were tightly knitted as her battle intent was gradually ignited in the air under the shapeless fluctuation. By the time Fox Saint Law stabilized her own strength, it was already half an incense's time later. Yi Qing Luo. The hoarse voice no longer had the previous coquettish tone. Fox Saint Law growled Yi Qing Luo's name, extremely ear-piercing and sharp. That pair of seductive, beautiful eyes were burning with a terrifying red glow, as though blood had spread out, covering the entire white of her eyes. That delicate face also showed a bit of twisted malevolence. She gave off an extremely vicious and crazy vibe. Fox Saint Law didn't have any hesitation or nonsense. After howling out Yi Qing Luo's name, it turned into a black ray, directly attacking towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Thick, profound energy collided against Yi Qing Luo's surrounding profound energy shield. Not only the air, even the ground, because of Fox Saint Law's attack, started to shake continuously. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows were tightly knitted as she hurriedly tried to evade. But when that burst of profound energy attacked, Yi Qing Luo felt as though she was being pressed down fiercely by an invisible mountain. Her legs didn't even have the energy to move. This made Yi Qing Luo's alarm bells rang loudly. Fox Saint Law's attack indeed made her feel pressured, but she had never thought that. Fox Saint Law's current profound energy was actually powerful to such a stage. It had already far exceeded her expectations. What on earth was going on? Could it be a madman from Hell Palace? Yi Qing Luo only had this guess in her heart. Old Man Tsang replied uncertainly, I only sensed a trace of aura, and it disappeared very quickly. Now from Fox Saint Law I don't feel any. Strange aura. Yi Qing Luo's expression became increasingly grave. She couldn't hide. Then she could only meet him head-on. She clenched her teeth, using all her strength, to resist that heavy pressure as she speedily rotated the glower flame fan in her hands. Red light shot out, enveloping her within. Bang! The Fox Saint Technique's attack fiercely landed on the red light. The red light trembled and suddenly dispersed, whereas Yi Qing Luo's 2 feet, which were standing on the original spot, actually sank downwards as it sunk a little. Are you very surprised? Fox Saint Law looked at Yi Qing Luo's expression as he laughed complacently. To be able to see Yi Qing Luo suffering a setback without any ability to retaliate at all. Fox Saint Technique didn't care about the reason for such a change in her body. She only knew she had this power. It would absolutely help her to defeat Yi Qing Luo. Her sudden surge in profound energy would at most cause her profound rank to suffer a backlash, that's all. With the Holy Wolf Technique, even if there was a backlash, the Holy Wolf Technique would definitely save her, as long as they could capture Yi Qing Luo alive. All he had to do was endure the pain of the backlash. She could endure it. Fox Saint Technique laughed coldly, showing off. This palace lord just didn't use my full strength. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched tightly. The pressure on her shoulder made it difficult for her to breathe. The pressure she had to endure made her complexion gradually turn pale. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly, as her mind quickly thought of a way to deal with it. After the sky profound stage, the difference of a single grade could easily take a person's life. Not to mention, what kind of realm had the current Fox Saint Technique's profound rank reached? Chapter 2968. Yi Qing Luo, you can't escape, you can't escape. Fox Saint Law's almost insane voice was filled with disgust and hatred. She was howling as she released a thick and overbearing profound energy, turning into a black ray as she pressed forward. That powerful, thick and frightening power. It made Yi Qingluo's heart filled with waves of shock. Yi Qingluo's pupils constricted as her 5 fingers moved. The azure dew ring on her fingertips seemed to be covered with a layer of blood-colored light at this instant. Swoosh! A gust of air current cut through the air. Endless red light overflowed from the azure dew ring as it speedily enveloped Yi Qingluo entirely. At the same time, Fox St. Law's attack had already landed. Bam! An earth-shattering, overbearing attack headed straight for Yi Qingluo's vital points. Qingluo! Qingluo! When Yen Xiaoyi and the others saw this scene, they were so shocked that they cried out Yi Qingluo's name. Even Shi Ju and Qi Yan, at this instance, dashed towards Yi Qingluo. But everything was too late. That overbearing and violent profound energy seemed as though it could destroy the heavens and earth as it all exploded on Yi Qingluo. The ground was like a spider web as it densely spread out. Rumble, the nearby mountain peaks of the Miao tribe all collapsed. The surroundings were filled with the wails of the Miao tribe, and the secluded palace's disciples' terrified cries. Die! Go and die! Go and die! No one can make me a joke. No one can be more powerful than me. All the scoundrels who have humiliated this palace master must die. But just as Fox St. Law revealed a joyous expression, suddenly a burst of sharp energy shot out from that overbearing, profound energy. At this moment, the bewitching red glow that enveloped the surroundings was like a huge red dragon with its mouth wide open and raging flames lingering around it. That bloody mouth was constantly swallowing the attacks of the Fox Saint technique. Die! Fox Saint Law, aren't you a little too confident? The young lady's sweet voice was filled with ridicule and ridicule. Under that red dragon's encirclement, a red figure flew out from the tyrannical dark force. The girl's slender figure and skirt fluttered in the wind like a blooming rose. Her silky black hair danced in the wind, further complementing her beautiful face, which was peerless in this world. The girl's right hand was covered by a layer of red light. At the tip of his fingers was a feather fan that emitted a red glow. Everyone was stunned by this scene. All of them widened their eyes in disbelief as they stared at the girl floating in the air. It was unimaginable. A 15-year-old girl. How did he manage to survive the powerful attacks of the second palace master of the Netherworld Palace? Moreover, he was able to survive. Furthermore, he was completely unscathed, especially when he saw the girl standing in midair. Her long and narrow eyes stared coldly ahead. That unparalleled aura that stood above all others caused others to feel as if they were blaspheming her by just looking at her. This was Yi Qingluo's ability. This was the true strength of the legendary heroine of the West Wave continent. Damn it! Fox St. Law's exquisite little face was filled with a twisted anger. She couldn't believe it. She had gathered all her energy and exploded a fatal blow. But it was blocked by Yi Qingluo. She actually blocked it. That obviously looked like a useless young lady. Chapter 2969. Splash! Don't even think of escaping. Fox St. Dharma's furious eyes were filled with rage, without a single bit of seductive charm. She let out a loud roar. The profound energy surrounding her swelled up once again, like a volcano eruption, as it surged upwards. That powerful, profound energy. The suppressed air seemed to have been condensed. The surrounding disciples who were trying to escape were pushed, and those who got nearer were all torn into pieces by this powerful force. Simply, it didn't differentiate between friend and foe. The entire entrance of the Miao tribe was a scene of carnage. Blood and flesh splattered, and the blood stench, along with the wind, could be transmitted for hundreds of miles. The Miao tribesmen, one by one, escaped into the Miao tribe. There were some Miao tribesmen who wanted to seek protection from the elders, but they discovered they totally couldn't find the existence of those few elders. Instantly, the Miao tribesmen panicked. One by one, the tribesmen who had never experienced such a big scene were so scared that their bodies turned soft as they knelt on the ground. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. That tyrannical, profound energy was still cutting through the air, crashing over. The crowd obviously felt that breathing was getting harder and harder. The air was condensed by the profound energy, becoming thinner and thinner. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Gue Wu, who had been watching by the side, suddenly congealed his eyes on Fox Saint Dharma. Gue Wu's rare words attracted the attention of the few beside him. Zhou Emo tightly hugged Kitty Li, who was struggling to pounce towards Yi Qing Luo as he turned his head, looking at Gue Wu with a grave expression. Ah, Wu, what do you mean by this? That second palace lord's aura is not right. Gue Wu frowned slightly as his voice was unprecedentedly solemn. That's not her aura, instead. It seems like someone intentionally transferring their own energy into her body. Gue Wu's fanaticism towards martial arts made him understand anything related to profound energy to some extent. And, the person hiding in the dark, I didn't sense any aura. The last sentence, Gue Wu's tone was a little solemn. Zomo's expression changed. Even Gue Wu couldn't sense the aura. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the person secretly transferring power to the Second Palace Master was. Second Palace Lord's hatred towards Qing Luo is so deep, as though there's a blood feud between them. She didn't want to capture Qing Luo alive, but to kill her. Yan Xiao stomped her feet anxiously. If not for Qiao Jin forcefully pulling her back, she would have already carried her black scythe blade and charged forward. This Second Palace Master is just a chess piece. Gue Wu furrowed his eyebrows as his gaze turned deep and serene. You guys stay by the side and watch. I'll look around for traces of the person hiding in the dark. We can only watch from the side. Peach clenched her fists and stared at Yi Qing Luo's direction, biting her lower lip. You don't have to worry about that last Qing Luo. To her, this is the best training. Gue Wu said indifferently as his figure disappeared into thin air, disappearing without a trace. The best training? Training? In the eyes of the ghost marshal, it was so powerful that it could destroy heaven and earth. Just Yi Qing Luo's training. Everyone's hearts, which were at their throats, unknowingly, slowly calmed down at this moment. Unknowingly, they believed in Gue Wu's words. Whereas at this moment, the red-robed young lady who was standing in midair slowly raised her hand, which was holding the glower flame fan. Chapter 2970, towards that raging, soaring profound energy and emitting oppressive aura. It totally didn't affect the young lady's transformation. The young lady's slender fingers, under the contrast of the red glow, looked extremely fair and eye-catching. Her fingers twitched, just like a remnant shadow. The glower fan opened up. 2 rays of red glow were released from both her hands, intertwining continuously. The young lady's hand, which was holding the glower fan, had not stopped for even a second. The remnant shadow floated, as though playing a beautiful tune on the glower fan. The hurricane wantonly attacked. It swept up the ground, full of flesh and broken limbs, sand and gravel. Kill! Fox Saint F's palm flipped. The 9-segment whip wrapped around her hand, turning into a sharp blade, striking towards Yi Qing Luo. The torrential profound energy covered the sky and earth, directly pressed down on Yi Qing Luo. Qing Luo, even though she believed Ghost Marshal's words. When she saw this scene, Yan Xiao Yi and the others couldn't help but had a change of expression. However, in the instant that the Fox Saint technique's long whip, which was like an ice-cold viper, flew over, Yi Qing Luo also opened her eyes abruptly. Fox Saint F's speed was fast. Yi Qing Luo was even faster. Under the situation where the naked eye couldn't see, The glower fan in Yi Qing Luo's hands had already forced the 9-segment whip's energy back. The red glow intertwined. The glower fan was like an excited fire elf as it flew around in the surrounding air. Fox Saint Fa only felt a surge of vast and majestic profound energy as it followed along her 9-segment whip and pressed down. She was shocked by this sudden burst of energy as her entire body tensed up. The long whip left her hand. Her body, followed closely, flew backwards, just barely, before she stabilized her footsteps. Under both of their feet, there was already a huge, deep pit. The surrounding mountains were still collapsing continuously. The huge rocks rolled, extremely terrifying. At this moment, even the Miao tribesmen, as well as secluded palace's disciples, couldn't help but stop in their tracks. He raised his head high and looked at the sky. This was a shocking and intense battle. This was the battle between the top experts. Fox Saint Fa felt helpless on her chest. An oppressive feeling that she couldn't calm down caused her to feel stifled and painful even when she breathed. He only felt that the energy accumulated in the profound heart jade seemed like it would explode at any time. Her scarlet-red eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. He was filled with anger. "Bitch! You used a divine artifact to cheat." Fox Saint Law's hoarse voice roared with unwillingness. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes. "Fox Saint technique. Your words are rather funny." Her pink lips curled up into a radiant smile, forming a stark contrast with the Fox Saint's pale face. "We aren't competing or anything, so how can I be considered cheating?" Soon after, Yi Qing Luo's smile became even more enchanting. "Moreover, I'm using the power of the god armament. Anyway, the god armament is mine. Terrifying Fox Saint technique. What about you?" Her eyes narrowed as she smiled, and a circle of sly, red light appeared in her eyes. Fox Saint Fa's body stiffened. "What nonsense are you spouting?" "Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you know best in your heart, Fox Saint Law." Yi Qing Luo closed the glower flame fan, propped her chin, and narrowed her eyes as she fixed her gaze on Fox Saint Law. Fox Saint Law's face turned slightly pale, as though she couldn't understand. How did Yi Qing Luo see through the reason for the change in her power? Chapter 2971. Fox Saint Law's hand, which was pressing on her heart, suddenly paused. Her breathing also became heavier. A pair of bewitching scarlet eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. What Yi Qing Luo said was indeed right. The profound energy on her body was indeed getting weaker and weaker under the repeated attacks. It was as though it would dissipate at any moment. That cold voice transmitted a powerful energy to her. After the battle with Yi Qing Luo, this body of hers was unable to withstand that powerful energy. The more it consumed, the more it consumed. The faster her body decayed, the faster her body decayed. If she continued to fight with Yi Qing Luo like this body of hers would definitely not be able to withstand this energy. Most likely, the consequences would not only be a backlash. There was also a possibility that her profound heart jade would explode from that cold energy, causing her heart to burst and die. Until now, Fox Saint Law then realized that because of her anger towards Yi Qing Luo, it had led her to such a state. At this moment, if she advanced, there was a possibility that the new life which she had just obtained would disappear once again. If she retreated, wouldn't it be admitting in front of everyone that she was no match for Yi Qing Luo? Fox Saint Law gritted her teeth, as her eyes were filled with hatred. Yi Qing Luo, that slut, actually had a divine relic in her hands. She actually used the power of the divine relic to go against her. Obviously, this Yi Qing Luo was just an ant which could be easily pinned to death. Why could she withstand the power of the divine relic? Why was it that Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she was not affected at all and could freely control the power of the divine relic? Fox Saint Law, you have no way out now. How could Yi Qing Luo not see the hatred in Fox Saint Law's eyes? She laughed softly, as her brows were filled with ridicule and disdain. I don't need to waste any energy to deal with you, anyway. From the moment you accepted that energy, you must die. Fox Saint Law's pupils suddenly expanded. I will not die. I absolutely will not die. Yi Qing Luo smiled elegantly. Do you really think I don't know that there's a spy from your secluded palace in the Miao tribe? You brought people from secluded palace and a batch of defective goods to encircle the Miao tribe. What's your purpose? Do you think I can't tell? Fox Saint Law's face turned pale, hearing Yi Qing Luo's confident words. It was as if he had already known their intentions. Now he was just inviting the enemy into the jar, catching a turtle in the jar. Whereas Fox Saint Technique's reaction had exactly verified Yi Qing Luo's guess. People from the Dark Abyss Palace, sure enough. They knew that DMO Xian would not be able to appear at this time. He had rushed over specially. Their first target was indeed DMO Xian. This would explain why the Palace of Gloomy Shadows would send a madman from the Hell Palace to assist them. This knowledge caused her heart to thump fiercely. Fox Saint Technique, originally it wasn't easy for you to revive, and I didn't want to kill you, but now you must die. Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly turned extremely cold. His voice was also as cold as ice. It concerned DMO Xian. She couldn't stay calm anymore. She raised her glowing flame fan and drew a line of flames in the air. That flame scuttled around Yi Qing Luo's palm. Then, with a loud rumble, it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it charged right at the face of the Fox Saint Technique. If you try to escape, I'll kill you before you escape. You want to continue fighting with me? Then I'll wait for you to self-explode and die. In any case, you must die. Yi Qing Luo's voice was like a sharp blade. Together with that scuttling flame, it covered the sky and covered the earth as it attacked Fox Saint Technique. Asterisk. Chapter 2972. Yi Qing Luo's entire body was shrouded in a bloody aura. Coupled with her domineering and majestic aura, it made one extremely shocked. Fox Saint Law didn't even have a chance to dodge. And there was no way to dodge. If she dodged, she would have to expend the last bit of energy in her body. Then, what awaited her was possibly her body exploding to death or a backlash. Not dodging. Yi Qing Luo's move was obviously filled with icy cold, murderous intent. If she was hit, she would definitely die. Fox Saint Law pressed against her chest as her brain roared furiously in her heart. You. Don't tell me you really want to see me die. However, there was no response from that cold and gloomy voice. In just a few breaths, Yi Qing Luo's attack landed head-on. Fox Saint Law's eyes were scarlet red, and her strong survival instinct made her follow her own instincts as she quickly adjusted the profound energy in her body, gathering it into her legs. The scorching feeling instantly scorched Fox Saint Law's heart. A burst of exploding feeling swelled her limbs and bones. Ah, ah, ah! A sharp scream came out from Fox Saint Law's mouth. Just when the Fox Saint Law thought that he was going to be forced to explode and die from the swelling pain, the Fox Saint Law suddenly stopped. Suddenly, a warm current spread from the bottom of her heart. Like a source of warmth, it slowly soothed the waves of scorching feeling. Under this warm current, Fox Saint Law's swelling pain, which was on the verge of exploding, finally eased down. Fox Saint Law was stunned for a moment by this sudden change. But very quickly, she regained her senses as she raised her eyes and looked at Yi Qing Luo vigilantly. Boom! A huge explosion exploded in the sky. The pitch-black sky suddenly surged with endless cold air. SSSSS. Another bolt of lightning fell. It was as if a huge hole had been torn open in the pitch-black night sky. In the dark night sky, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The icy cold air circulated in midair. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was also attracted by this shocking sound. She frowned as she looked at the lightning flashing and thunder roaring in the sky. Could it be that the people from the upper realm had sensed that the lower realm's peace was disrupted and specially came to stop it? After all, Hell Palace, that was a powerhouse from the Earth realm. The people from the Earth realm had interfered in the lower realm's matters. That would violate the balance between the realms. He was also looking down on the authority of the sovereigns. But everything was not as what Yi Qing Luo had expected. The rumbling thunder and lightning in the sky did not strike the people of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness, nor did it strike the Fox Saint technique. He just kept tearing at the light on his body, dyeing the night sky. Yi Qing Luo's heart had an indescribable feeling of uneasiness which was attacking her. In less than the time it takes to burn half an incense stick, suddenly a ray of white light, like a beam of light, shot toward the sky where the lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A deafening roar rang out. The white light disappeared into the lightning and thunder. Then the sky returned to its tranquility. It was as if the lightning and thunder from before had never appeared. This scene caused everyone to be dumbstruck. They were truly unable to understand exactly what this wave of lightning and thunder represented. Everyone stared at the sky that had calmed down. Because of this, he did not discover it. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo's entire face had already turned pale. She gripped the glowing flame fan tightly in her hand and curled up tightly. Her pearly white teeth bit her lower lip tightly, as though she was enduring something. If one took a closer look, they would be able to see that her body was trembling slightly. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyelashes very, very hard. Her heart seemed as though it had been knocked hard by something. If she didn't see it wrongly, the direction where the white light appeared. Chapter 2973. That white light, what was it? The ex-saintess has ascended. Faintly, Yi Qing Luo heard an extremely shocked voice. Yi Qing Luo's body moved as her gaze speedily followed the direction of the voice and looked over. Next to the chaotic battlefield, Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao were supporting each other, while Fourth Elder Miao was walking at the very front. Great Elder Miao raised his head and stared at the spot where the white light had disappeared. He said, "The former holy maiden has ascended." "The Miao tribe is completely hopeless." Second Elder Miao immediately raised his head and looked at Yi Qing Luo. When he realized that Yi Qing Luo's line of sight was also directed towards him, Second Elder Miao opened his mouth, looking as if he wanted to say something. "What are you looking at?" Fourth Elder Miao's face instantly sank when he noticed Second Elder Miao's gaze, and he swiftly turned around to slap Second Elder Miao's face. "Do you still expect that rascal to save you? You want her to save you after what you did to her just now." Fourth Elder Miao's slap caused Second Elder Miao to lose his balance. Even though he was supporting the Great Elder Miao, the slap still sent him stumbling back several steps before landing heavily on the ground. Even Great Elder Miao was dragged along. He staggered a few steps back. His expression was cold as he shouted, "Fourth brother, what are you doing?" "I am teaching you the rules of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness." Fourth Elder Miao didn't bother to hide anymore. He looked at the two people in front of him with disdain. "Now, you are the dogs of the Palace of Darkness, and I have a higher position than you. Don't try to show off in front of me with the rules of the Miao tribe." Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao were trembling with rage. However, no one dared to refute Fourth Elder Miao's words. This look of compromise. It was obvious that he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Fourth Elder Miao, whereas Yi Qing Luo, who was not too far away, heard their conversation clearly. Her eyes instantly darkened. The spy of the Miao tribe, it was Fourth Elder Miao. He told the dark, secluded palace about the situation of the Miao tribe and told them to surround and attack the Miao tribe. It was Fourth Elder Miao. It was this fourth elder Miao, putting Ah Xian in danger. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed as a trace of biting cold murderous intent flashed past. The place where the former saintess ascended is in the saintess yard. The Overlord must also be there. Immediately bring people to break into the saintess yard, find the Overlord, and kill him directly. Fourth elder Miao hadn't noticed that Yi Qing Luo had already placed all her attention on him. He continued to give orders to Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao. Fourth Elder Miao had always been oppressed by the two of them because he was the fourth elder of the Miao clan. At this moment, he finally had a chance to retaliate. He was so pleased with himself that he didn't notice any other details. When this sentence entered Yi Qing Luo's ears, Yi Qing Luo's expression changed completely. She raised her eyes and immediately looked in the direction of the saintess yard. This group of people, their target was indeed Dmo Xian. Fourth Elder Miao instructed Miaoda and Miao Heir to kill Dmo Xian once they found him. These words obviously meant that he was certain that the current Dmo Xian had no ability to retaliate at all. In other words, Fourth Elder Miao was completely certain that Dmo Xian had been poisoned. So he specially took this chance to kill Dmo Xian. This thought made Yi Qing Luo's heart twitch fiercely. She didn't have any chance to hesitate. Chapter 2974. Yi Qing Luo, have you forgotten that this palace mistress is still here? Just as Yi Qing Luo was about to reveal her back without any worries, a complacent and vicious voice suddenly rang behind her. What followed was an aggressive fluctuation of qi, stirring up stormy waves in the air. Bam! Bringing along the power of the black qi wave, it landed heavily on the young lady's delicate back. The young lady's slender body flew out in an arc in midair. A red remnant shadow flew out horizontally. Qing Luo! Yan Xiaoyi and the others' green veins popped out as they hurriedly rushed towards the direction where the red robe flew out. Qi Yan flew in a circle. That red figure fell steadily into the soft phoenix feathers. Shi Ju followed closely as it stood by the side of Qi Yan. Its huge leopard head arched towards Qi Yan's back. Stinky leopard! Don't dirty this sacred beast's phoenix feathers. Qi Yan didn't change its sharp and unkind nature as it arrogantly raised its head and used its mouth to spread its wings. Shi Ju gave a low awoo as though it was feeling wronged. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest also rushed over. They raised their heads as they looked at the two huge war beasts on the horizon. Seeing Qi Yan catching Yi Qing Luo, they heaved a sigh of relief. But when they recalled that Yi Qing Luo had suffered from Fox Sacred Technique's palm earlier, they were extremely worried. Qi Yan, let us take a look at Qing Luo's condition. Yan Xiaoyi opened her mouth anxiously. However, the arrogant Qi Yan used its high and mighty fiery red eyes to sweep them a glance as it sneered. This sacred beast's master, this sacred beast is able to protect her. You're just a burden. Cough, cough, cough. On Qi Yan's back, that petite figure suddenly sat up. She covered her mouth as blood seeped out from the gaps between her fingers. An exquisite little face was extremely pale. Qing Luo! The few of them cried out worriedly in unison. Yi Qing Luo held onto Qi Yan's phoenix feathers as she propped herself up as her eyes stared coldly in front. Fox Sacred Technique stood there arrogantly as he laughed complacently. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. She was certain. His move just now had definitely landed on Fox Saint Technique's body. Regardless of whether the Fox Saint Technique had used the power in her body that did not belong to her to dodge, or to completely withstand her attack. The end of Fox Saint Technique. They would all die. Why could Fox Saintess still stand there? Earlier, that overbearing and dense, profound energy that struck her body. He didn't seem to be hurt at all. Not only did the Fox Saint Law not die, he even took the chance when she was worried about Dmo Xian. Gave her a slap. Yi Qing Luo, Do you really think that your judgment is 100% correct? What a pity. This palace master won't die. The one who will die will only be you. Fox Saint Law laughed arrogantly, his eyes already filled with a raging storm. While they were talking, all of a sudden, a wave of dense and powerful energy surged out from Fox Saint Law's body, as though it could attract all the air in the surroundings, turning it into a surging wave of air. That was the chill of absolute death. This made Yi Qing Luo's heart sink a little. She pressed her hand to her chest. She had received a solid blow from Fox Saint Law's palm strike. This palm strike had caused her internal injury, which wasn't light at all. She held her breath tightly as she adjusted the profound qi in her body, circulating it around her injury. Following that, she speedily fed herself a few pills to adjust her internal injury. Chapter 2975. Xiao Yi. Yi Qing Luo's palm lit up with a raging flame as she panted heavily, using the mercenary group token between them to communicate. You guys bring Qi Yan and Shi Ju over to the place where the white light appeared earlier. What about you? Yan Xiao Yi replied quickly. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent. Fox Saint Technique will not let me leave. Their target is Xian. Quickly go over. Don't let them find Xian. Miao Ji ascended. This meant that Miao Yi was the only one left in the Saintess Yard, although Chi was guarding the place. But the so-called person from the underworld palace of the gloomy darkness palace had yet to be confirmed, so no one knew who he was. In any case, the Saintess Institute must not be disturbed. Whereas Yi Qing Luo used the mercenary group's token to communicate, which made Yan Xiao Yi and the others stunned. Following that, after hearing Yi Qing Luo's words clearly, his heart was also in his throat. DMO Xian was in the Holy Maiden Institute. Based on DMO Xian's ability, was there a need for Yi Qing Luo to worry? Unless everyone recalled Yi Qing Luo's soulless state not long ago. His heart couldn't help but thump violently. DMO Xian was definitely dispelling the venom. At this moment, if DMO Xian was found by the people from the Nether Palace, the consequences were unthinkable. Yan Xiaoyi knew how important DMO Xian was to Yi Qing Luo. She did not hesitate any longer. He whispered to the people around him, "Follow me." She immediately ran in the direction of the Saintess Yard. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo also gave Qi Yan and Shi Ju an order. Qi Yan glanced in the direction of the Saintess Yard and snorted coldly. This holy beast is not interested in protecting those old, weak, sick, and disabled people. Yi Qing Luo didn't have the mood to joke around with the medicine. Her eyes were gloomy. If anything goes wrong over there, you better be prepared to go back to sleep. After that, she didn't even look at Qi Yan. Waving the devouring flame fan, the flames on his body swayed like a fire elf in the wind, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws as he attacked. The target of Netherworld Palace was DMO Xian. The Fox Saint technique would definitely not let her leave. She wanted to rush to the Saintess courtyard. He could only kill Fox Saint Law, although she didn't know what method the Fox Saint technique had used to be able to block her move just now. But the foundation of the Fox Saint technique was there. Can have a good luck once. However, it did not mean that she could continue her good luck. Fox Saint Fa seemed as though she hadn't expected that after Yi Qing Luo had completely taken one palm from her, she still had some leeway to retaliate. The complacent smile on her face instantly froze. Yi Qing Luo, how could you? That palm just now, the Fox Saint technique, had already exhausted all of its profound energy. No one knew, just as she was about to explode and die, that warm current not only soothed her restless profound qi, but it also soothed her restless profound qi. Slowly, the power that didn't belong to her was extracted from her body. Pull away. This meant that her body no longer had to suffer the pain of exploding to death or the backlash. But once he withdrew, Her crippled body would be so weak that she had no way to go against Yi Qing Luo. Because of this, just now, when the power was withdrawn, Fox Saint technique exhausted its last bit of energy and attacked Yi Qing Luo, attempting to take away her life. That kind of power. Not only did it not cause Yi Qing Luo to die or be seriously injured, it even allowed Yi Qing Luo to counterattack once again, and she didn't even have the energy to evade. Yi Qing Luo's heart was filled with anxiety at this moment. Her mind was filled with thoughts of killing the Fox Saint technique and rushing over to Di Mo Xian's side. Chapter 2976. Huff! The raging hurricane stirred up everything around it. The raging flame wind blades shot out from Yi Qing Luo's hands, forming a gorgeous sharp edge in midair. That raging flame wind blade was like a huge bloody mouth, as though it wanted to tear Fox Saint Law's entire body into its stomach. Between Fox Saint Law's pupils, patches of raging flames spread out. Her expression was twisted and sinister, and from her throat there was an uncontrollable howl of unwillingness. Clang! Suddenly a black ray brushed past that wind blade which was about to land on Fox Saint Law. The black ray was sharp as it collided with that wind blade. Instantly, the air seemed to be compressed by something. The entire space seemed as though it was about to shatter. The raging wind howled, the earth quaked, and the mountains shook. Everything in the Miao tribe had turned into a piece of ruins. Looks like it's not that your luck is good, but there's someone who has been using his own life to protect you. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes, a biting cold glint, as it swept past that sudden black ray. Others couldn't tell. She could absolutely tell. That black ray wasn't the profound Yin Qi which came from Wolf Saint Law. It was Wolf Saint Law. That person who loved Fox Saint Law made use of Yi Qing Qian's corpse to revive Fox Saint Law. Originally, she thought that Wolf Saint Law had used the resurrection secret art, causing his body to deteriorate, and was unable to stop Fox Saint Law's actions tonight. She had not expected. Wolf Saint Law was actually in the dark, silently protecting Fox Saint Law. This feeling was really touching. Brother Wolf. Fox Saint Law, at the moment of life and death, realized who was the source of the energy which was blocking in front of her, protecting her. Fox Saint Law's face instantly revealed an ecstatic smile. A black figure gradually appeared in front of Fox Saint Law. When Fox Saint Law saw that muscular and imposing figure in front of her, the smile on her lips became even wider. Her arms encircled the man's waist. I knew it. It's you who are protecting me. Who are? Wolf Saint Law's voice was slightly hoarse. He raised his hand, holding the soft little hand on his waist. He could feel the woman's soft and delicate body behind him, as well as that familiar fragrance. The Wolf Saint technique closed its eyes in satisfaction. However, this kind of warmth, in this kind of place, in this kind of situation, was not suitable. Yi Qing Luo didn't have the time to look at their warmth. Holy Wolf technique! Yi Qing Luo's voice was chilly, as though it could reverberate faintly. It's you who helped Fox Sacred Technique to block that move, and also helped Fox Sacred Technique to expel the energy which didn't belong to her body. Just now, Fox Saint Law was able to be safe and sound in that kind of situation. Not only did he not explode and die, he could even turn the tables and give her a slap. Yi Qing Luo had been guessing the reason behind it. After seeing the Wolf Saint technique, they understood. With the Holy Wolf technique, how could he just watch as something happened to Fox Saint technique? However, in the past, the strength of the Wolf Saint technique was inferior to hers. Not to mention now, after using the Resurrection Secret Technique, what kind of strength could he still have to be able to block that move of hers? He also expelled the evil energy from the Fox Saint Technique's body. It should be very difficult, unless the Wolf Saint Law had made a deal with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Or perhaps the Wolf Saint Law forcefully displayed the Dark Secret Technique. This thought made Yi Qing Luo squint her eyes as she stared at the Wolf Saint Law in detail, sizing him up. Her gaze had only touched that not unfamiliar face of the Wolf Saint Law. Chapter 2977. TSK, Fiste. I have to praise you. You're indeed an infatuated man. Yi Qing Luo's smile was icy cold as her lips twitched. For the Fox Saint's skill, you don't even intend to take your own life. Wolf Saint Law's breathing tightened. His hand, which was holding Fox Saint Law's hand, subconsciously tightened. When Fox Saint Law heard that, she suddenly felt flustered and wanted to retract her hand anxiously. Brother Wolf, what does she mean? Wouldn't want your own life. But before she could retract her hand, she was caught by Wolf Saint Law. For some reason, Fox Saint Fa always felt that the strong and powerful hand that usually held her hand was soft at this moment, as if she could not use any strength at all. She just wants to disturb our hearts. Don't listen to her. Wolf Saint Law's gentle voice answered Fox Saint Law. Such gentleness. It was Yi Qing Luo's first time seeing it, even if it was towards Yi Qing Qian. She had never seen Wolf Saint Law so gentle before. Was this the difference between a true love and a substitute? Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept past Wolf Saint Law's pale white face, although Wolf Saint Law tried his best to restrain himself. But everyone could see that, between Wolf Saint Law's brows, the creases were tightly knitted, and the cold sweat kept oozing out. It could be seen that Wolf Saint Law's current body was already in a terrible state. Right now he was just forcing himself. It seemed that in the actions of protecting the Fox Saint technique again and again, it had already caused Wolf Saint Law's body to become more and more dispirited. Fox Saint Law also felt that something was wrong with Wolf Saint Law. Hearing his words, she felt even more flustered. Brother Wolf, did you block the attack for me and hurt yourself? Hooer! Wolf Saint Law panted, as though it was difficult for him to speak. Don't let your imagination run wild. I'm fine. Brother Wolf. Fox Saint Law frowned. Her face was filled with panic. At this moment, she looked like a girl next door. There wasn't a single bit of that malevolent and terrifying look. Looking at the two of them talking, Yi Qing Luo's palm wind moved. A cold, murderous intent appeared in between her brows. What do you think your appearance can change? You can protect her the first time, the second time, but can you protect her the third time, the fourth time? Following Yi Qing Luo's voice, Yi Qing Luo spun the glower flame fan, and it had already turned into a sharp weapon as she pressed forward. Don't fight. Anyone who stands in my way will die. The Wolf Saint technique grabbed the Fox Saint technique's hand tightly, and the mysterious Yin Qi in his body followed the palm wind and split it apart. The two forces only collided in midair for several breaths of time. Yi Qing Luo's attack had obviously gained the upper hand as she directly slashed a gap and dispersed the ball of profound Yin Qi. And the Wolf Saint technique took advantage of this opportunity. Pulling the Fox Saint technique, he quickly retreated. In just a few steps, he had already returned to the back of the enormous, dinosaur-like magical beast. Yi Qing Luo, are you very worried about Sacred Maiden Institute? Although the Wolf Xingfa's hoarse voice sounded unstable, the ruthlessness in his tone was evident. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled violently as the icy chill in her eyes deepened. You want to go there? You want to stop Gloomy Palace? Wolf Saint Law chuckled, but it's too late. Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed instantly. She pursed her lips tightly, not daring to open her mouth easily. She was very clear about the Wolf Saint Law's sinister nature. There was a possibility that he was intentionally bluffing her. Chapter 2978. Yi Qing Luo's fingers curled up tightly as she gripped the glower flame fan tightly, suppressing the surging emotions in her heart to maintain her balance. Although the appearance of this saint magic can't change anything, but this saint magic has brought you a gift. Wolf Saint magic didn't care if Yi Qing Luo admitted it or not. Between his brows was a deathly stillness. Gift. These two words made Yi Qing Luo's alarm went off. In her mind, 3 words instantly surfaced. Hell, prison, residence. Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped hard. She instinctively turned her head, wanting to escape. But everything was already too late. Just at the instant when her footsteps moved, a hurricane filled with vigorous energy shot downward swiftly. The swirling sand directly blocked her path. Following that was a gust of sharp, murderous aura, directly pressuring Yi Qing Luo's face. The raging wind kept howling furiously. Yi Qing Luo's body at this moment was exactly the same as when Fox Saint Magic's profound energy exploded, unable to move at all, as though both her legs were shackled and bound. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes instantly froze. The chilliness between her brows also magnified at this moment. She forcefully held on to her last breath as her fingers pressed hard on the glower flame fan. Swoosh, 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 even with the glower flame fan's protective shield. That surging energy, it directly tore a few holes on Yi Qing Luo's robe. There were even some red robes dancing along the raging wind. Strong. So strong. Yi Qing Luo's pupils slowly congealed. The expression on her face at this moment became extremely grave. The current battlefield was no longer something which those ordinary secluded palace's disciples or Miao tribesmen could interfere in. They could only quietly observe the changes, waiting for any chance to escape. The surrounding gravel swept up the storm as though it was going to swallow everything around, completely. Thick sand and stones surged. Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao looked at the corpses on the ground, and the Miao tribesmen were huddled in a corner, shivering. Their hearts were in extreme pain. Yet now, even they themselves were being controlled by someone else. Second Elder Miao clenched his fist tightly and covered his chest. He wiped the blood off his lips and said, "Fourth Elder, you are lying to us. Even if they joined the Palace of Darkness, they will not let the Miao tribe go." It was not only the Miao people, even the disciples of the Dark Abyss Palace who came here today. Those so-called vice palace masters, holy techniques, and leaders. He had no intention of sparing their lives. They were from the beginning. He wanted to kill everyone here. The sudden and powerful energy permeated the entire Miao tribe. Even the previously complacent Fourth Elder Miao cowered at this moment. Hearing Second Elder Miao's question, Fourth Elder Miao's heart became even more flustered. Naturally, he could tell as well. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness did not intend to let anyone off. He had also been deceived by the people from the Palace of Darkness. But now he was being questioned by Miaoda and Miao Air. He couldn't reveal even the slightest bit of abnormality. Otherwise, even though the two of them had lost a lot of power, but if they joined hands, they would still be able to deal with him. Fourth Elder Miao snorted coldly with a gloomy expression. In the Miao tribe, that bunch of trash, if they can't survive, then it's because they are too weak. I persuaded you to join the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. That's on account of our past relationship, to spare your lives. If you want to die together with the Miao tribe trash, then go ahead. Chapter 2979. Grand Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao were originally certain that Fourth Elder Miao was intentionally lying to them. But looking at Fourth Elder Miao's look. But it didn't look like he was lying, especially when they heard that Fourth Elder Miao asked them to join the Palace of Darkness. That was to let them live on. The expression on their faces eased up slightly. Fourth Elder Miao, who had followed the both of them for several decades, could tell what they were thinking from their expressions. Fourth Elder Miao also eased up his tone as he suppressed his voice and pretended to be mysterious as he got closer to them. You've also seen it clearly. Palace of Darkness motive today isn't because of the Miao tribe. If you want to occupy a certain position in Palace of Darkness, then we have to help Palace of Darkness to achieve their motive. Grand Elder Meow immediately looked at the gorgeous young lady whose entire body was encircled with red glow, as though she was enveloped in a blazing fire. The young lady's eyes were icy cold as the energy she released was majestic and intimidating. He couldn't help but shivered. If we can settle Yi Qing Luo, then there's no need for Palace of Darkness to take action. Who said Palace of Darkness motive is Yi Qing Luo? Fourth Elder Meow had an impatient look as he interrupted Grand Elder Meow's words. Haven't you realized? Yi Qing Luo's bunch of brothers and those two terrifying war pets have all disappeared. Grand Elder Meow and Second Elder Meow's eyes flashed as they immediately looked around. Indeed, they didn't discover those figures. But we also don't know Palace of Darkness motive and what those people are going to do. How can we help Palace of Darkness? Second Elder Meow's white brows creased tightly as he asked. Let's follow Yi Qing Luo's bunch of brothers over and see what they are going to do. Then stop them. Fourth Elder Meow narrowed his eyes as his lips curled upwards in a sneaky manner. He raised his hand as he pointed towards the path which Yin Shao-Yi and the rest had left on. As long as we stop them, then we will know what Palace of Darkness motive is. By then, as long as there's a chance, we'll help Palace of Darkness to complete their mission. By then, do you think? Whatever we want, Palace of Darkness will not give it to us. Recalling how he had been tricked by Fourth Elder Meow earlier, Great Elder Meow hesitated when he heard his suggestion. Fourth Elder Meow changed his expression and sneered. He turned around and left. Since you're not willing, I'll follow you myself. Don't say that I didn't warn you. After he finished speaking, he followed the direction that Yin Shao-Yi and the rest had left in without turning back. Great Elder Meow and Second Elder Meow looked at each other. 5 fingers clenched and loosened and clenched again. After repeating this process for a long time, he gritted his teeth and followed behind. Now they had no other choice. Whereas at this moment, Yi Qing Luo, who was contending against that valiant energy, had already turned pale, and her body, which was suspended in midair, was on the verge of collapse. If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried about DMO Xian and was struck by the Fox Saint technique, Yi Qing Luo wasn't in such a sorry state. As expected of an interesting prey, in the sky a cold voice sounded. It was as if it was coming from all directions. Just listening to that voice, everyone felt their scalps turning numb as chills ran down their spines. Even if it was Yi Qing Luo, when she heard that voice, she couldn't help but frown. Her petite body gradually tensed up. That person. Chapter 2980. Boom, boom, boom. The deafening sound of the profound wave reverberated in the air. The ground, which had already turned into waste, along with the vibration, continuously cracked open again. With a burst of shaking, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. Yi Qing Luo was forced to squint her eyes by this force. In the midst of the hazy airwaves, Yi Qing Luo suddenly saw a tall and sturdy figure not far away following the profound wave. That person's figure was sturdy, dressed in a black robe, covering his entire body. Following the surrounding whirlwind, his robe fluttered, making a fluttering sound. The most shocking thing was, his entire body was shrouded in a thick layer of evil qi, wrapping him tightly within. Yi Qing Luo only felt the azure dew bracelet on her wrist, boiling hot. Beside her ear came Old Man Song's hurried voice. It's him. The evil qi from the underworld palace. Lass, you're not his opponent. Quickly leave. Think of a way to leave. Underworld palace. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Her 5 fingers tightly clasped the glower flame fan, trying hard to stabilize her state of mind, forcing herself to open her eyes, sizing up that person. But when both her eyes completely fixed on that person, Yi Qing Luo instantly felt a cold, big hand penetrating her neck, directly clutching her heart, making her heart, suddenly, feel a sharp pain. Her throat seemed to have lost the strength to breathe. This was from the Earth realm, the power of the underworld palace. As that person neared, the chilly wind around them became more and more violent. Yi Qing Luo's torn robe poured in the cold wind. 3,000 fine black hair dancing wildly on her shoulders. Swish! Only to hear the sound of a figure passing by in the air. Another blink of an eye. The cold and gloomy breath was already close at hand, assaulting her nose. That person, and Yi Qing Luo, was only 3 steps away. Close. That black evil qi which enveloped that man was hazy, faintly discernible. Vaguely, Yi Qing Luo vaguely saw that person's face. That was what kind of face? Even if it was just a blur, Yi Qing Luo's impression of that face was still extremely deep. Facial features were still considered regular. If one only saw half of his face, he could be considered handsome. But if one looked at the face as a whole, that was simply shocking. Half of the face, from the forehead to the chin, had a deep gash. That gaping wound could still be vaguely seen, a ghastly wound. It was extremely terrifying and disgusting. From his forehead to his eyes, there was a mass of blood-red substance covering his face. If one took a closer look, they would have the illusion that an eyeball had popped out from the mass of blood. In addition, the man's eyes. It was a pair of eyes that made her body stiffen, as if she was in an ice house, unable to move. The chilly aura that assaulted their nostrils was accompanied by an austere aura. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted a few times. This person's aura was too majestic. Even she was not intimidated by him. If he took another step closer, Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled fiercely. He wanted to move, but he couldn't. Ha! A chuckle escaped from the man's mouth. The cold voice seemed to be mocking something. He just looked at her quietly. Amidst the black fog, Yi Qing Luo could see that the way that man looked at her was as if he had seen his delightful prey. Not bad, not bad. Worthy for me to take action personally. That man's lips curled up coldly as he laughed lowly. Chapter 2981. People from the Earth Realm. Just spitting out these 4 words, Yi Qing Luo already felt endless pressure, filling her lips and tongue. She shut her eyes, took a deep breath, and continued. You came to Nirvana Realm. Aren't you afraid that the balance historian will arrest you? That person's brows rose. The scar on his face, as well as that red mark, also started to squirm. Since you're able to see through this seat's identity. His tone was obviously delighted. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly, forcing herself to calm down, fixing her sight on him. Hell Palace's people, coming to bully people from the lower realm. Aren't you afraid of sullying Hell Palace's prestige? That person's eyes lit up, as though a red ball of blood seeped out a ray of light. You know this seat? You, this young lass, know quite a lot. He laughed sinisterly. On the account that you've won my heart, this seat allows you to say out your master's name after I hand you over to the palace, Lord of Seclusion Palace. This seat will then let your master take revenge for you. These words could only be described with the word arrogant. That person obviously didn't put Yi Qing Luo in his eyes. Instead, he directly set his sights on Yi Qing Luo's master. In the eyes of that person from Hell Palace, a lower realm young lady, how could she be so powerful? She even knew about the Earth Realm, Hell Palace, and other news. There must be some expert behind her. There must be some existence. This young lass was chosen by the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. Then he would treat this young lass's master as his next prey. Yi Qing Luo snorted lightly. As the gaze she shot towards that person was filled with contempt, I thought Hell Palace was filled with talents and existence beyond the 3 realms. I'd not expected. It's merely a lackey of Seclusion Palace. As she said that, she pretended to make a disdainful sound, although Yi Qing Luo's face had a calm and disdainful look. But her fingers, which were gripping the glower flame fan, had already betrayed her inner thoughts, facing this person in front of her. The aura from him was simply too terrifying, especially after her words were spoken. This person's emotions and that bone-chilling gaze became even more horrifying. She was betting they were a bunch of lunatics who had gone crazy for evil arts. This group of lunatics, even if they were a group of lunatics that were neither human nor ghost. But he definitely still had his pride. Moreover, their self-esteem was even stronger than that of ordinary people. This group of unrestrained lunatics, even the people of the Earth domain, were terrified of him. Even the historian of balance was aware of the existence of this group of lunatics and this organization, but he still sat back and did nothing. From this, it could be seen that the group of madmen from the underworld palace were people that even those from the Earth realm did not wish to provoke. This kind of lunatic was usually the most free and unrestrained person. He especially couldn't allow others to humiliate him, not to mention comparing him to someone else's lackey. To Madman, this was a great humiliation. That person's expression proved that Yi Qing Luo's gamble was right. That person's gaze was like a death god locking onto Yi Qing Luo. His eyes were cold and indifferent. If it wasn't for the fact that Hell Palace owed the mistress of Seclusion Palace a favor, why would I, Xia Ba, possibly come down to the lower realms? That person bellowed furiously as a frenzied murderous intent surged in his eyes. He suddenly raised his hand. The hand under his sleeve was extremely slender, like a withered twig. The most terrifying thing was Chapter 2982. It was just a glance. Yi Qing Luo felt her scalp turning numb. That strange hand quickly reached out to her. Her heart felt as though it was suffocating as it was squeezed. She tried her best to raise her breath, trying to avoid the Hell Palace's man, who was Xia Ba's attack. But she hadn't moved. She only felt a cold breeze brushing past her cheek. In front of her, a figure appeared, blocking her firmly behind his back, and that withered palm which was surrounded by black qi directly grabbed that figure's neck, hanging that figure in his hand. Yi Qing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. The scene in front of her made her slightly stunned. That bamboo-colored figure was tall and slender, swaying in her eyes. Someone helped her to block Xia Ba's attack, replaced her to be strangled by Xia Ba. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled fiercely when she saw clearly that tall figure's face in front of her. Her face instantly turned pale. Her lips trembled slightly as she blurted out, "Gu! Young Sect Master Gu!" The person who blocked in front of her, who replaced her. He was South Continent's young sect master, Gu Jingyu. Why was Gu Jingyu still here? Early in the morning, after the King of Venomous Worms' inheritance ceremony had ended, hadn't most of the powerhouse's representatives left the Miao tribe? As South Continent's young sect master, shouldn't he have left earlier? And why did he run out to save her? Could it be that he couldn't tell that this lunatic called Xia Ba was so powerful that he wasn't afraid of any powerhouses in Nirvana realm? Even if he was South Continent's young sect master, Xia Ba would absolutely not show any mercy. Qing Luo. Gu Jingyu painfully called out Yi Qing Luo's name. That suffocating feeling made his face flushed red and green-purple as his eyes protruded out. After he opened his mouth, the words were squeezed out from the slits of his teeth with much difficulty. "Go. Quickly go." Gu Jingyu's hands grabbed Xia Ba's hand as the strength of his struggle became weaker and weaker. "You." Xia Ba's gaze fell on Gu Jingyu's face, and he immediately frowned, as if he wanted to say something. The torn wound, as well as the blood-like rolling mark on his eye, slowly wriggled. It was extremely horrifying and disgusting. Evil tyrant, Yi Qing Luo saw that Xia Ba's target had turned towards Gu Jingyu and immediately cried out sharply, "Your target is me. He's merely someone unimportant." Xiaoba's vision shifted from Gu Jingyu's face to Yi Qing Luo. Don't worry about me. Hurry up and leave. I will be fine. Gu Jingyu's hands were clutching onto Xiaoba with all his might, attempting to make Xiaoba's attention to himself, so that Yi Qing Luo could gain some time to escape. Looking at that face, which had almost turned purple from suffocation, Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes trembled fiercely. She gripped the gourd-flamed fan tightly, then borrowed the strength of the deep-water ring. A dense aura lingered between her palms. Without any hesitation, her eyes were icy cold, as she fiercely attacked Xiaoba's hand, which was raised up. "Overestimating yourself, little prey." Xiaoba sneered, as he didn't continue to make things difficult for Gu Jingyu. His 5 fingers loosened. He casually waved his sleeves towards the direction where Yi Qing Luo was attacking from. Black-colored qi, emitting a piercingly cold, profound ray, headed towards Yi Qing Luo's face. Powerful, profound energy covered the sky and earth as it pressed downwards. That bone-chilling cold. Chapter 2983. Hell Palace's Madman. So strong. It looked like he just casually waved his sleeves, but he was able to bring along such a powerful, profound energy. Yi Qing Luo had originally suffered an internal injury from Fox Saint's technique. Following that was Evil Tyrant's counterattack. She couldn't hold on any longer. Her petite body was sent flying by the force of the backlash, until she flew more than 10 meters away. Yi Qing Luo then managed to stabilize her figure. The loose strands of hair on her forehead stuck to her beautiful face. Her face was pale, pink lips were tightly pursed, and her hair was in a mess. Obviously, she was in a sorry state. Yi Qing Luo panted heavily for a few times, and following that, her vision immediately shot towards Gu Jingyu, who had been released by Evil Tyrant and was lying limply on the ground. At this moment, Gu Jingyu was propped on the ground with one hand as he panted heavily. He, who had always been gentle and elegant, was in a sorry state at this moment. As though he noticed Yi Qing Luo's gaze, Gu Jingyu panted as he raised his head and looked at Yi Qing Luo. When his 4 eyes met with Yi Qing Luo, that pale and frail face surfaced a faint, warm smile. That smile made Yi Qing Luo's heart had a sour feeling. Her 5 fingers slowly curled up. She knew that Gu Jingyu liked her, and right from the start, she had clearly rejected Gu Jingyu. Obviously, there wasn't any deep interaction between them previously, but she had not expected. Gu Jingyu could actually disregard his own life for her, even at this moment, to make her feel at ease. He even forced a smile to express that he was fine. This man, he was really an extremely gentle person. Perhaps it was because their gazes were too obvious. Evil Tyrant's eyes were filled with interest when he saw that Yi Qing Luo wasn't seriously injured after his counterattack. Following Yi Qing Luo's gaze, he looked towards Gu Jingyu. That evil, cold, and treacherous gaze flashed. The interest contained in it was overflowing as it became more and more intense. The next moment, he raised his hand once again. A gust of evil qi sprang out from his palm, only to see that ball of evil qi quickly twining around Gu Jingyu's body. Gu Jingyu had yet to catch his breath when his arms were restrained by a gust of energy. Evil Tyrant raised his hand. Gu Jingyu's body was also directly dragged to the horizon by the evil aura. Evil Tyrant! Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth as she stared at Xiaoba. To deal with a lower realm like me, do you need to use an unimportant person to threaten me? Is this the power of the Hell Palace? Xiaoba laughed coldly. His eyes were filled with ridicule and madness. He tilted his head and grinned. His smile was sinister and cold. In addition to that face, it brought about a strange and terrifying feeling. He looked like a madman. Is this your little lover? From the looks of it, compared to you, I'm far inferior. Xiaoba cast a disdainful glance at Gu Jingyu. Little girl, your taste is really bad. What has this got to do with you? Yi Qing Luo didn't have the mood to explain her relationship with Gu Jingyu to Xiaba. Looking at Gu Jingyu's increasingly painful appearance, Yi Qing Luo's eyes were about to burst into flames. Evil tyrant! Since you are helping the palace of gloomy darkness to deal with me, then come at me directly. Don't think that I'm really afraid of you, who came from the Earth realm. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's infuriated look, Xiaba laughed even more crazily. As he laughed, a tyrannical and terrifying aura exploded from his body. That horrifying and disgusting eyes exuded a thick chill